All right, good evening, everyone. I am going to call the New Hartford Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting dated February 24th, 2026 to order at exactly 7 p.m. For those of you who are able, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you to the board. The next item on the agenda is the order of business. I do not have any changes to the order of business. Does anybody else have any thoughts or any reason for any changes or anything that they would like to put to a 2/3 vote for addition to the agenda? All right, seeing none, order of business will stay the same. Next item on our agenda is communication to the Board of Education. We have not received any communication to the Board of Education, either through the superintendent or through myself. The next item is public comment. And before we open this up to the public who's here tonight, there have been a lot of discussions that have come my way through phone calls, people in the community. Social media has gotten back to me regarding our policies and how we operate with public comment and why we operate differently than the other boards and commissions that are in town. So I thought it was important that we explain that for transparency so those in the community understand why or how we operate as the Board of Education. So we do operate under our own board policies and bylaws. One thing that we do use is CABE, which is the Connecticut Association of Board of Educations. Provides guidance for us. They're kind of the liaison in our consultant between us and the State Board of Education, who govern us as a local Board of Education. So I'm going to read a couple things from the guide that I am provided as the board chair, and anybody, when you become the board chair, will receive this guide as well. But this guide has some information that helps guide how we do our business in public, as well as I'll read some of our bylaws that are on our website. So the first is public participation. The laws governing Board of Educations require that their work be done where the public can observe their actions. The law does not require the board to allow the public to speak before the board nor participate in the board meetings. However, boards of education typically desire community involvement in the decision-making process. It is important to hear what the community is thinking about, even if they aren't happy with something the board did. The key is knowing the board can establish reasonable procedures for the public's involvement in the board meetings. Most boards either start or finish their board meetings with general public comment, period. CABE suggests limiting discussion to a specific time on the agenda, possibly 15 to 30 minutes at the start of the meeting. We also recommend putting limits on each speaker. 3 minutes is the average. The key to this working effectively is to be consistent effectively is to be fair and consistent in the application of this time. If you let one person go 5 minutes over his or her 3-minute comment period, it will be hard and possibly an infringement on the individual's rights not to let everyone who follows also have extra time. The chair also needs to be sure that certain types of comments not be made in public session. Most boards do not allow members of the public to speak during the regular part of the agenda. It is never necessary to recognize a member of the audience. Consistent behavior is necessary, and the rules should be the same regardless of the issue. Our bylaws should spell out what is allowable for the audience participation at the meeting. Again, occasionally the topic is an explosive one, engendering strong emotions. Ensure the meeting does not degenerate and that the public's participation is appropriate. Remember that it is the board's meeting and the others should participate only with approval of the board. Dialogue between board members and the audience should be discouraged, as should dialogue between board members during public comment. So that's the guidance we have through CABE, who is our consultant, right? Referring to our bylaws of the board under meeting conduct, which is 9325. Meetings of the Board of Education shall be conducted by the chairperson in a manner consistent with the adopted bylaws of the board. All board meetings shall commence at the stated time and shall be guided by an agenda, which has been prepared and delivered in advance to all board members and other designated persons. The conduct of the meetings, to the full extent possible, enable members of the board to, one, consider problems to be solved, weigh evidence related thereto, and make wise decisions intended to solve the problems. And two, receive, consider, and take any needed actions with respect to reports of accomplishments of the students or of school system operations. Provisions for permitting any individual or group to address the board concerning any subject that lies within its jurisdiction shall be as follows. 5 minutes may be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. No boisterous conduct shall be permitted at any board meeting. Persistence in boisterous conduct shall be grounds for summary termination by the chairperson of that person's privilege of address. If necessary, the chairperson may clear the room so the board can continue the meeting. No oral presentation shall include charges or complaints against any employee of the Board of Education, regardless of whether or not the employee is identified in the presentation by name or by another reference which tends to identify an individual. All charges or complaints against employees shall be submitted to the Board of Education under provisions of Board of Education policy. Continuing to bylaws 9325.3, which is parliamentary procedures, rules of order. Regular and special meetings of the Board of Education are held in public, but they are not public hearings unless so designated. Comments from those citizens present will be welcome at times indicated by the chair, but such participation shall not be allowed to interfere with the conduct of the business by the board. When comments from the public would be particularly helpful to the board in reaching a decision on an item, the board may schedule a public hearing devoted exclusively to that item. No new topics will be started after 10:30, except by 2/3 vote of the members present. A lot of words and a lot of legal information, right? But the summary of this is that we do allow public comment as the board. The board had made a decision to allow public comment at the beginning of our agenda, and then for agenda items only at the end of our agenda. The difference that we need to keep in mind is that public comment is comment. We want to hear from the community. We want to get their input. Public comment is not question and answer. And there's reasons behind the fact that it's not question and answer. And the reason is that the board chair, myself, or anybody else on this board has a certain role, right? So this again gives us guidance on the role of the board chair. The primary role of the chair, other than to run the meeting, is to be the voice of the board, representing the collective will of the board to other community boards, commissions, and to the public. It should be noted that the authority of the chair is due to the board's selection, and the chair is no more powerful than any other board member. The chair can be overridden at any time by a simple majority vote of the board. So what that really is telling us is that question and answer, I can't speak on behalf of the board unless there's the will of the board is already understood. Just like no member of the Board of Education can, in this room, speak on behalf of the other 8 members of this board. So public comment as a board needs to be just that. It needs to be public comment. And that's the reason we can't respond to questions when questions are posed to us or create dialogue, because it's not a public hearing. We have to set it up as a public hearing, which happens. All right. And then finally, the one thing I do want people to know, because again, people, our community does have questions and they want answers to those questions. And there's vehicles to get those. And those vehicles are emails to myself or the superintendent. Those correspondents that come to us, again, more guidance, is that letters are often sent to the Board of Education through the board chair. A common question that the board chair asks is whether or not those letters have to be read at Board of Education meetings. It is important that the chair share information with members of the board, but it is not necessarily nor appropriate to take up a meeting time by reading all letters at a board meeting. It is far more appropriate to ask the superintendent to add a copy of the letters to the board members' information packet. So that's what we want the community to do. If there's questions that people want answers to, we are willing to share information. I don't think that there's one email that superintendent has received or I have received that we haven't responded to. We take all public communication. It's item number 3 on all of our agendas for communication to the Board of Education. They are acknowledged in a board meeting and they are included in our meeting minutes. So that's the vehicle to be able to ask questions where we can give you answers and we can share that with the full board so that we can give an answer that is the collective will of the full board. But it can't happen at a board meeting. So Again, a lot of information, but I thought it was important to go through that because it's come up over and over and over again. Why can we not respond to questions? And the answer really is it's not a public hearing. It's public comment. We can hear people's opinions. We can hear their feedback, but we can't answer questions within that, and we can't have dialogue unless it's a public hearing. Does anybody on the board have any questions with that? I know there was a lot of information. I can share all this information with everyone, but.
You know, before you were chair, oh, sorry. Before you were chair, I think when Carl was the chair and Brian was the superintendent, they decided because we cannot have dialogue when somebody asks us a question or make a comment back, was that either the chair or the superintendent, or I guess it was the chair that would say to that person, we'll look into it and we'll get back to you.
Yes.
Can we still do that?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that, that's what we had done our last meeting. We had some public comment. There was a question that was asked. That question is going to be on the question and answer for the budget tonight. Because as I said, when my response was that we would add it to the questions, and we'll have an answer this meeting.
Okay. The other thing is, I always thought it was after 9 o'clock at night, we couldn't start a new subject.
I don't know.
That's what I've always heard.
I would much rather.
I think we should look at that policy maybe and make a change.
Who's the chairman of our policy committee?
Me? I guess we'll discuss it.
All right.
I think 9 o'clock is fine.
I will take a look at the policies and see if we have one in the Board of Ed as,
regarding the lateness of the meetings and how long they're legally allowed to go. I will take a look through the policies and make sure that if there is something that the Board of Ed states, then we will adopt that
I
because
thought Tim just read it.
not regarding the length of time of the meeting.
No, a
No.
new subject after 10:30?
10:30. Yeah. No new subject will be started after 10:30 p.m. except by 2/3 vote
So,
of the members.
I was always under the impression, and I've always been told up until now, that we could not start a new subject after 9 PM. We could discuss past 9 PM as long as we had already opened that subject, say like at 8:55. Or, 8:55. And then, but nothing new after 9. So I think we will take that under advisement
yes, we should.
and present it back.
Does the board have any other questions on public comment before we open it up? I'm good? All right. Would anybody like to address the board? You start, Mr. Bailey. I know your name. Start with your name and address, please.
Jay Bailey, 575 Main Street.
Thank you.
So from what you just said, it's my understanding that if I want a question asked, the protocol should be email you, or if I ask you a question in the comment, give you time and expect the answer next meeting,
That's correct.
right? So I can ask a question, but don't expect an answer off the top of your head. Give you time to all deliberate.
Correct.
Right? So that's okay too, or an email.
Yes, you're asking me questions now, and
Well, no, I'm not. I'm just saying if
I know,
I worded
I know,
it, if
I
I'm
know.
understanding correctly.
Yes, I know.
You
I
like
know.
the way I worded that?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address the board tonight? Lou, would you like that? No? All right. Okay, thank you. We will move on to, we'll close public comment and move on to item D, superintendent's report. Mr. Sousa.
Great. Thank you so much, Chairman Kleps. I'd like to open up, first of all, before we get into our presentations from a response to one of the questions that we had from one of the board members for special education. And I've asked our Director of Student Services, Mike Lynch, to be here with us tonight to help inform that presentation. But I do want to start off by thanking the board. Received over 115 questions. So thank you all for doing your due diligence, taking a look at the budget, and making sure that you ask any questions that are on your heart or your mind, or even provide commentary. I really appreciate that. Thank you to Chairman Kleps for the format that was created, and thank you to Sarah Vogel, who helped bring all of that information together in one succinct area. Those comments and questions are available online, so anyone that is viewing at home right now, you could simply click on the Board of Education website and look under the budget materials. You should find that there. And also the questions are available right here on the table if you'd like a copy of those. They're available obviously for public observation as well. All right, with that, I will send it over to Mike to present on the question that our board had asked last time regarding special education. So come on up, Mike. Mike to the mic. Mike to the mic.
Son? All right. So what was the question? About preschool?
Preschool is one component, but I believe, I'm trying to remember who asked the question specifically about our costs over time. I thought someone had asked that. Was it you, John? What was it specifically? You want to hit your mic just so, yeah.
So to help us all, including public, understand what's been happening, there was I know you put various reports together, but kind of looking at, the enrollment, depending on how far you zoom out, kind of it could be up a little bit, down a little bit, flat, but, kind of roughly the same. But then over the course of the past several years, past 10, past 5, especially past 3, as you know, dramatic increase in the number of students receiving special education services and IEPs. And so, obviously there's, there could be a wide range of the intensity of services that any one student might need through their IEP, the state educated plan that you're very familiar with. And so trying to help, get everyone understand this dramatic rise in the intensity of services here. And of course, the intensity of services requires resources, which cost dollars here. And so as we think about the budget, people might say, hey, the budget is flat, why are costs increasing? But the underlying shift between general ed to special ed and the intensity of services is a real driver of our costs. And so with your expertise, hoping to have some explanation around that for everyone who's looking at the budget.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good question. It's a question across the state and the nation. So our numbers represent similarly the increase across the state. So we're seeing that in the state of Connecticut and then nationally as well. I know I can speak for us here in New Hartford. There's been a lot of the screeners and a lot of the universal screeners, both for academics and social emotional health. That didn't exist that many years ago. So kids are caught very early on through our program. I also think we also see a big increase in the number of students from like the birth to 3 process. So I just think that we are much more informed and have better measures and really have like a pulse of exactly what every student needs. But again, you could get into a big debate on the increase, but the increase is in line with what we're seeing across the state in terms of education in general. I don't know if that's a good answer to your question so much as.
I think for folks who are wondering, how does that then translate into the state has requirements for these plans, students on IEPs, they're evaluated periodically, make sure the student needs to continue that level of services, but also this changes, it's not just a classroom with say, 18 students in it, it could be very different dynamics. Can you describe some of those to help people understand what the range of services might be that students on these IEPs might need?
Yeah, so I mean, we have students that give it, say for instance, they have like a speech disability and they might be getting 20 minutes of service a week total. That might be either in a group or the speech pathologist could push into a classroom. So that could be that student's getting 20 minutes a week. On the other end of it, we have students that are supported with adults throughout their entire day. So their entire day from the moment they step in to the moment they leave is supported either by a teacher or a paraeducator. So there's a huge range, and sometimes it requires multiple people. So there's a huge range. So it's hard to look at just numbers and get a true understanding of how many services we're providing because it's so varied and every student's plan is based on what they need and based on the data and the information that we have. So again, it can vary a great deal.
While Mike is here, I think it's very important that we talk about our pre-K program specifically because it had been just recently discussed. And I want to make sure people have very clear understanding of what our statutory requirements are. So under Connecticut General Statutes 10-10A, local and regional boards of education and preschool programs that receive state or federal funding must participate in the statewide public school data system. That participation includes reporting on student experiences in preschool by program and type, by the number of months in each program, and kindergarten readiness and student progress in kindergarten. This reporting was required annually beginning October 1st, 2007 and thereafter as prescribed by the Commissioner of Education and by law. It is required to provide services for eligible 3 to 5-year-olds with disabilities. So while Mike is here, because I know that there had been some discussion regarding enrollment numbers, Connecticut law does require reporting of pre-K enrollment participation data as part of the statewide public school information system and is the requirement set out in statute. So while Mike was here, I thought it would be engaging for the board and the public to have an understanding of what our current pre-K costs are versus what it would be to quote unquote outsource such a program that our parents absolutely love. We've had waiting lists for years since we've been here, and our program has robustly grown to meet the needs of our community, and that's what we are here for. So, Mike, can you please describe some of the costs associated with running preschool now versus what it would cost to outsource, and with the students that we currently have that receive special education support in pre-K, what that would look like?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So right now, and I always say this right now because pre-K is ever changing. So right now we have 44 students in our pre-K program across 3 classrooms. When we're asking about what is the cost, if we look at the cost for the 3 teachers, we're looking at $222,000 for those teachers, $90,000 for the 3 paras, so a cost of $312,000 for our pre-K program, just for the teachers and the paras there. Also keeping in mind that we take in approximately about $70,000 in pre-K tuition. And we also get approximately $20,000 from the IDEA grant, both 611, which is for students aged 3 to 21, and then the 619 part of the grant is specifically for pre-K students, so age 3 to 5.
A combined 20K from,
If I had to estimate, because yes, it's a combined 20K.
thank you.
Because the majority of the 611 grant that's age 3 to 21, the majority of that goes to all the students, but the 619 grant is very specific to age 3 to 5. So that gives you an idea of the cost. So the 312 minus approximately 90,000 is the cost to run our pre-K program in district. So 222,000. I think the question has come up both here and in other avenues of like, what is the cost to outplace a student or to have outplace a student? Right now we have 16, as of today, we have 16 students getting special ed services in our pre-K program. The average cost to outplace a student is about $150,000 a year. So if you do the quick math, it's about 2.4 million if you wanted to send our students out somewhere else. Also keep in mind that our pre-K students, when they come to us from birth to 3, are often with us for more than 2 years, sometimes almost 3 full years. So that's a cost that continues to compound. And again, we're just talking costs and we're just talking special education students. There's a ton more to pre-K that I can't really even touch on, but I know the specific question was on the financial costs. But, I would encourage anybody that's looking, or asking the questions about our pre-K program to reach out to any parents in our district that have gone through our pre-K program, because I'm constantly hearing from community members and families how phenomenal the teachers are and how much more prepared they are.
The 2 minutes also where there were the sensory rooms, the smaller spaces, the PPE, the OT, the meet spaces there. There's a lot to get out of the traditional classroom to provide the state required education. More than just education, but the student support. So
Correct. There are some more pieces to it. So like, for instance, if somebody gets occupational therapy, our occupational therapist works for the entire district, pre-K to 6. So does she have a component of her day that's working with preschoolers? Yes, but it's not the majority of it. And the same thing with our speech language pathologists. They work for the entire building. They're not just for pre-K. But again, if you were saying like having them go someplace else, those costs would have to be included in that. Yeah.
So just if I could, just to summarize, so you went through all those numbers pretty quickly.
Yep.
So right now, what you say cost, and when you say cost, that's for the 3 teachers and how many pairs?
3 teachers, 3 paras.
3 teachers and 3 pairs,
Correct.
less what we get for tuition for
Correct.
the other students that are in the program,
Correct.
less the 20,000 we get in the IDA grants,
Correct.
IDEA grants.
Correct.
So it's $322,000.
So it's 312.
I'm sorry,
minus
222.
Yeah, correct.
222. 222. Right, but that doesn't include, as John was just saying, right, other services they get, the electricity in the building, the heat in the building, things
Correct.
like that. So there's, again, more than 222, but nowhere near $2.4 million in a year,
Correct.
right?
Tuition also, there's the, I understand that the current yearly rate is about 5,500, 600, but then there's need-based support, so families, there's an application process, can afford that, then this community pays for a portion or all.
Correct.
So that 70K, if someone does the math at home, you know, think about 80, 70K, the numbers don't add up because of that grant support for, whether the offsets for the tuition.
It could also just, I'd have to look at the specific numbers. It could be just what we've received so far this year. Because there's still some time left in the year.
The point is, we don't exclude someone because they can't afford to pay.
Correct. Correct. Yes, there are some times where, because of need, that we don't charge a family that full tuition.
Yeah, and I think John might be referring to current legislation and the endowment that was put forth from the Office of Early Childhood. So we will be looking into different avenues to continue to advance our programmatic intake of grant funding, because there is more money out there that we will be chasing after.
We're not going to require someone to pay, you can't pay.
No, everyone could see online, you know, with all the laws are currently, you know, making under $100,000 if the program is part of an accredited program in the state of Connecticut's eyes, there's funding measures there too.
Mike, I have a question on how is the tuition, the tuition rate set for a family? Is there like an income-based sort of
Yes.
analysis, or is it a
So
set?
there's a base one, and then if somebody says, if however we find out, they either reach out to me or they say that there's having a problem making the payments, then there's a calculator on the Office of Early Childhood that I use to calculate how much they should have to pay for the whole year, and then we adjust it based on that, and it's income based, income and number of people in the family.
Okay. So I personally applied for my daughter to get into the preschool program next year. And I've heard from other families just generally kind of what the average cost is. And it seems incredibly reasonable compared to what I was paying for daycare, for example. Daycare is extremely expensive. So I think it's a great program and it's a very reasonable price. My question is, though, why is it possible to perhaps increase the tuition for families that can afford it to offset some of those expenses? Not to, of course, you know, everybody loves to have inexpensive childcare, but when you
Yeah.
think about $400 or $500 a week that parents are spending on daycare, wherever they may get that service, you know, whatever we're paying monthly is substantially less than that for the program. So I'm just curious how that works.
Yeah, I think we always try to balance that with being affordable. You know, I have raised the cost, I think twice, and then next year we're going again. So every other year we do raise it. But I also think there's the historical cost as well. So I just think we try to be very mindful and making it affordable to families. So that's always just something that we're trying to balance. I think it would be I don't know how we would charge people more, you know, if like based on income, because we don't ask for anybody's income unless they specifically request for a reduction in the cost.
Okay.
But again, I do think it's really important for us as a community to offer childcare that's affordable. And I also think I'm trying to be very mindful of where we started and what the cost has been historically. So I do raise it because we have to, but I also try to be very mindful of how much we raise it.
Okay. Is there a availability of how that is calculated, or? or the percentage increases?
Pretty much every other year, I raise it about 3%.
Thank you.
Have you looked at other towns? Because every town's got to have a program like that, right?
Yes, we have. We're kind of in the middle. There are some towns that, depending on grant funding, depending on other things, charge less than us, and there's some that charge more. So I believe we looked at that about a year ago. We were kind of right in the middle with costs.
Have we been turning students away because of class size?
Yes.
How many?
Last year, when we opened the third section, we were pretty much able to take everybody, but then I think some people inquired after the start of the year. We also had some people that turned their seat down. We filled it with somebody else, and then they wanted the seat back and it wasn't there. And we also had people, one of the requirements to get into preschool is to come to the playgroup day. So we did have, 5 or 6 that didn't show up. So we were pretty successful with finding spots for most people. I know this year we already have, I think right now we have approximately 22 slots for next year, and we already have 28 people signed up. And so we're not going to close that until March 1st. So unfortunately, and I didn't break down specifically 3 and 4-year-old slots. So there tend to be more 3-year-old slots and 4-year-old slots. But just to give you an idea, we'll definitely fill our third classroom up next year as well. And it's also a similar size to like our kindergarten, the same number of kindergarten classrooms. So I think historically we've had 3 to 4 kindergarten classrooms, and we've only had 1 pre-K. So.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So outside of financial benefits, what are some of the other benefits you see for the students who are receiving the service in district? Students that are, I don't want to say paired with them, that are brought in with them within district.
Yeah. So all of our preschool teachers have a regular education certification and a special education certification. So all 3 of our teachers are certified both to teach regular ed and special education. Our program is play-based, which the research says needs to be. And our students are coming in, when we compare them to students that maybe didn't have our preschool experience, they're coming in more prepared to be students. More emotionally regulated, understanding how to be a student. And they're just ahead of their peers, I think, in kindergarten when they come in from preschool because they've had the experience of school. We do start with the 3-year-olds at a half day, 4-year-olds are a full day. So I think that does slowly get them ready to be students. They're in a school building. If you go into one of the preschool classrooms, they're working on letters and, how to write their name. And so different parts of that aren't done outside of like a preschool setting. We also have our eyes on students much earlier. So if we notice that a student might be struggling in an area, we can give them support. And all the research says the earlier you give kids support, the better the outcomes. So we can have just a better idea of the support that a student might need. I would have to ask the kindergarten teachers to give you a little bit more information. But it's not a perfect science, but we can often tell, when our kids come from preschool, we hear that they're prepared. From the kindergarten teachers, they tell us they're ready to be students, and that they have the basics that they need to be successful to start kindergarten. Because there's some families that come for whatever reason, and whatever family choice, that they haven't had any exposure to school. And so kindergarten's the first time they're stepping inside a building. So they've never had to learn rules or sit at a desk or, not that they sit at a desk, but do those pieces of school that really the preschool is trying to make them ready to be students and ready to be, learners.
Mike, can you also talk about the Friday little cooking club?
Yeah.
Because that's one of the beautiful highlights of our preschool program, demonstrating the integration of specialists together with our classroom teachers and the collaboration that's gone behind it and some of the results that we've seen.
So we have both the book buddies, and then they've also done preschool cooking in past years. So the book buddies is, I mean, I think you sent something out about that as well. It was a great program connecting preschoolers with second graders, and the second graders learn a book and then read it to the preschoolers. And so that's a great program. And then I know that you mentioned the cooking. Is that what you're talking about? We have, the preschoolers learning how to work with their hands, following directions, if, then, next, measuring. The speech pathologists will often come in, the school psychologists will often come in, targeting different areas that those students need to work on. So it's a great integrated program.
One thing you mentioned that I just want to make sure is like very clear, that I think there's a lot of questions regarding the cost and what we charge and how it's like, well, how it's applicable to daycare. But the 3-year-old program, it's only half days and it's only during the school year. It is not a full parental working day coverage from
No.
8 a.m. to 5 or 6 p.m. And so comparing those costs, going and pulling a list of how much it would cost to enroll your kid at like a local daycare in town, it's not a one-to-one comparison because it's not covering all the costs
Correct.
for the families. It's not covering all the costs for people here. So I think that is something important for people to understand when they're thinking about how much we are charging for the program, so that those rules and those guardrails are in place. It is a school day. You have to pay. I don't even actually know if you offer after-school programming for pre-K 4, but it's not until the end of the workday like daycare is. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was clear on the record, that those are not direct comparisons from a cost perspective.
Correct. So from kindergarten to 6th grade is the school day is 6.5 hours. Pre-K 4 is 6.25 hours, and then pre-K 3 is 2.5 hours. So yes, their day is shortened.
I have one more question for you,
Mhm.
and this might be based on history or what you've seen, but we haven't had pre-K in our district for all that long, right? And when did we start the pre-K program here?
It's
Might have
about
been before you,
6
right?
No, it's not before me.
No, just before.
It
was before me.
him. I would say when Jen Zenu was on the board, she and I started the pre-K program.
And I remember you calling around.
Right, maybe 6 years ago.
I believe the first students are now in 7th grade. I have a 6th grade daughter who benefited from the program, both in the 3-year-old and the 4-year-old, and highly recommended. But
So
they're
when
probably
you-
7th
when you
graders
look
now.
at that, again, I'm thinking of financially as well. When you look at the students that we outplaced prior to that, right? And now outplacing them not only in the pre-K 3, pre-K 4, but now what was the percentage of students that returned back to our district, or did they stay out of district? And then we continued to pay outsourced cost for the 6 years that we educate here, right? Before we send them to regional and pay for them there for outplacement.
Yeah, I believe.
I guess
Right.
simply to make it easier for you, how many students do you see now that are in our pre-K 3, 4 program that decide, other than from their parents move and they move out of district, that they leave our district to go to a correct school or somewhere else to get services?
Typically, I mean, we've had students that start at a correct school because there's not been space, or for whatever reason, or it's just, they do have before and after school care sometimes. So that is just, it's a better fit for some families. But we don't have anybody that starts in our preschool and then leaves and goes somewhere else, to answer your question. And I believe prior to this, I don't know if we paid shared services to run a preschool, but I'm sure, I don't know what the cost of that would have been, but I'm sure it's more to pay a company to do a job than it is to run it yourself. So I don't have that historical data with me, but.
I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
I do have one more thing. I agree with you where 3-year-olds are concerned, but where 4-year-olds concerned, I think that it is very comparable to kindergarten because it is a 6.5-hour day. And then you said pre-K is 6.25. So I feel personally, for me, I have a daughter in kindergarten and I have a daughter that's at a correct school right now in preschool. So the days are pretty comparable to each other and I work full time.
Yep.
So I do think that it is to be considered that you are spending, whatever the cost is of daycare or wherever you choose to go compared to going to our preschool program. It is quite a cost savings.
Mhm.
So I do think that at 4, it's comparable. 3, not so much. That's all I wanted to say.
Any other questions for Mike regarding the pre-K program?
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Yes, otherwise it'll just pick up. Thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, I want a quick summation of some of what we just discussed. And as a superintendent with years of knowledge working in an educational system, it is extremely beneficial to have a pre-K program within your district. The thought of sending our babies outside of the town in which you live in doesn't line up as a parent. That's the part of me that's saying that's not the right path. And I would also echo the same sentiment. The part of me that's a superintendent knows that that is also not financially prudent, but on top of that is not what's good for children. They need to be in their neighborhoods with their kiddos, their friends, not leaving to then come back. It then causes another transition when eventually they do come back to the town setting. Thank you again, Mike. All right, moving on with the next portion of our agenda, we have our budget workshop number 1. Again, I thanked all of our board members for submitting many questions. So we will go through these, buckle up. Last time was short and sweet. This time is going to be a lot lengthier. So hopefully you brought your sleeping bags, pillows, and whatever else you need. 10:30, okay. By board policy. Question number 1, and some are duplicative, and I'll indicate that so we won't go through all 118. But question number 1 was a public comment on February the 3rd. Does the board intend to prepare the rooms vacated by Oak Hill for use, and what will they be used for? I presented the refresh plan on that same day on 2/3/2026. The school facility utilization task force information will consult on how to best use those spaces. So just referring back to the budget booklet under capital, if I take everybody over to page number 50 of the budget book. If you don't have that, that's okay. I'll read it out. It says Antolini Classroom Refresh Classrooms 25, 26, and 29. What will be done in parentheses, we're looking at flooring, which needs to be remedied. The condition of the flooring is not good. Neither is the carpeting in one of the particular classrooms. They do need to be painted. With that painting, there are several holes in the wall ranging from 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. Those need to be filled and then painted as well. Window treatments have to be taken into consideration and applied there due to the sunlight coming into those rooms. Some of them do not have blinds. Some of the cabinetry as well. And then there's also our technology to consider as well for the refresh of those classrooms. Intended usage, again, we're going to leave to the task force recommendations. Are there any new changes to the budget since we received the one dated January 27th? The current budget is a 3.96% or $408,851 increase. Number 3, if it's projected that we are going from 28 to 40 pre-K students, why is there a decrease of $70,000 for tuition on page 4? Tuition is for outplaced students. This pre-K tuition fees go towards SPED certified staff at New Hartford Elementary, just like Mike presented a moment ago. Under decreases, page 4, what is E-rate? Good question. For number 3?
Yeah.
Okay, I will go back.
Yep, I'm fine. I just want to go back and.
Sure. So tuition is typically, I'm going to try to clarify better.
Yep, thank you.
Tuition is for outplaced students is what it's technically used for. The tuition for the pre-K program, so I was just trying to make a distinction there in the answer. The pre-K tuition fees go toward paying for the certified staff. That's the $70,000. That's why it's a decrease. That's why it's in red. Okay. Good? All right.
I don't, page 4, what do we mean, page 4?
Page 4 probably of,
What do we, this question referring to what? The very bottom of it. Oh.
Right here on the budget book, page 4. So pre-K tuition, I was just making sure I distinguished what the outplaced tuition is. It's different than that with excess cost grant. So I was just making sure that people understood the distinction there. And then the pre-K tuition, that's an offset to the special education line. Okay, you're welcome. Number 4, under decreases, page 4, same page. What is E-rate? E-rate is a reimbursement grant for internet and infrastructure. So that is provided by the federal government. So anytime that you have internet in a school or you need to upgrade your Wi-Fi because of changing technologies for access points and so much more, which I could, bore everybody along with Paul here. That is what E-rate is for. It is a reimbursement grant. This year we're up for changing all of our Wi-Fi. And Paul has taken the bull by the horns on that project, done a very nice job already, and put out bids and received those so he can get the project started over the course of this summer. So thank you, Paul. Number 5, I'm confirming that the projected increase of the budget is 396. Yes, 396. Number 6, how is it estimated that next year we will have 40 students coming into pre-K? So we're continuing our 3 pre-K classrooms with birth rates. That's probably our best indicator. And there's a wait list every single year, but we're looking at the birth rates being the primary, and then the current kids that are in pre-K 3 now as moving on. So we take all of those kids combined together, but birth rates is really the driving force there. What's the ratio of special needs children versus regular ed children in pre-K? It's constantly changing. This comes right from Mike. Currently, we have 30% of our pre-K population that is receiving special education support of one form or another with a variety of needs.
Can I go back and ask you a question about the previous one?
Number 6, sure.
So you just said we're taking the 3-year-olds that are going into 4th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and then the people that apply for spots that are open, but we're not going past having 3 classrooms.
Correct. That was asked last time too during space utilization. The
Okay.
program will stay at 3
Okay.
3
Thank you.
classrooms. You're welcome.
Jeff, is there like a survey that goes out to the pre-K 3 to see if those students are going to stay in pre-K 4 or if they're going to choose to go elsewhere? I know Mike said that that doesn't generally happen, but
Yeah.
is there a question to the pre-K 3?
Saying yes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Number 8, we have 189,000 in the non-lapsing account. Why not spend some of that instead of overtaxing the taxpayers in town? Well, the board must vote on that. Superintendent cannot expend, sorry, it's a typo, those funds without Board of Education vote. I have no authority over that by law. I can't do anything with that account without the 9 of you voting in favor of doing something with those funds. That's the law. Number 9, how many students are on the pre-K wait list, paying or non-paying? This was as of February the 18th. We had 26 preschool signups with 22 slots. The signups don't close until 3/1. So, and then finding out if they're paying or non-paying, we won't know until after screening and after they fully register whether they're paying or not. We just won't know until we get the kids in the program.
Those children that can't afford to pay the whole cost, how do we make up that money? Or do we not make up that difference?
Yeah, it's not made up because we still pay for the certified and non-certified staff no matter what. So any tuition monies that we get in helps to offset that cost. The $222K is what Mike just presented.
But that's just for the, what was it, 14 or 16 special ed children?
That is for, what do you mean, the non-paying or the paying? Because it's the full 40 kids.
Mike mentioned there were 16 children with special needs.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong in assuming the $222,000, that cost is just for special needs children?
No, that's the salary for the teachers and the para-educators total.
Minus the tuition of 70,000 in the grants.
Yes, that is correct.
So that's for all the children in pre-K, not just the 16.
That's correct. Yes, now you got it. Yes, spot
And for
on.
those children whose parents can't pay whatever we're charging these days for tuition,
Yep.
it's just written off?
No,
Or
they have to prove
forgotten?
that they have a hardship that goes through
Right.
Mike. and then they determine what the payment would be, if any. That's through Mike's office.
Okay, I guess.
Number 10, can the enrollment and class sizes tables be updated to reflect the current numbers and current projections? Unfortunately, no, because it is exactly that. It's a projection table. Can't put the exact numbers in there. The current numbers have been shared by kind of looking back at the previous year and the previous grade, but it's, again, those are all projections. Those are not meant to be exact numbers. Sarah will be sending out the exact numbers to the board tomorrow morning regarding what specific classes have by student number right now. So that'll be another piece of information to share with the board. And those fluctuate, as I've said. Our sixth graders will go up to regional. We'll get our incoming kindergarten, incoming pre-K students. But then over the summer, we always have surprise move-ins. I watch the realty market very, very closely. There are always homes for sale. They do not last long. So X moves out, family moves in. Look, we've got another first, third, and a fifth grader that's happened to us in the middle of the summer or right at the beginning of the school year, and off we go.
But you did say during the last meeting that the projections for like grades 1 through 6 roughly right now are based off of like the current enrollment.
Yeah, they are.
levels for the, yeah.
Yes, yes. Thanks
So,
for the point of
Again, like
clarification.
Sarah's going to share that information out, but just like looking at those, like those numbers are pretty as good as we can get from a
That's
projection
exactly
standpoint.
right. Yep. Can you walk us through how staffing levels are determined in relation to enrollment, class size targets, and special education mandates? Well, we first and foremost follow the class size policy of the Board of Education. So that's how those are determined. Those are our targets. We don't, the town's philosophy, the Board of Education's philosophy is not a large class size to educate our students. We know that a smaller class size, we can afford more attention to our students and making sure that they have all of their needs met. The PPT determines the services needed for each individual child. So I can't speak to that outside of it's very unique for every one of our special education needs students. We do very strategically place them in classroom settings across the board with like peers, unlike peers. Again, we want them to have the best educational experience possible. If there are students that have some similar needs, again, for scheduling purposes, that might be something that our administration takes under consideration, but those are very unique needs for each and every child in terms of placements. Can you explain the background and purpose of our pre-K program, including the state requirements for special education beginning at age 3, how priority is given to students with identified needs, how the integrated model supports educational outcomes, and how this program is prudent for long-term cost management? This dovetails off of what we just were talking about nicely. You can see the answer there. School districts are required to provide special education services for children identified starting at the age 3. If they are identified as a special education student, they are automatically given a space in our pre-K classroom. Average outplacements are $150K. And at that time, when we wrote this answer, meaning the 14 students would cost approximately $2.1 million in outplacement costs if we were to look at dissolving our pre-K program.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
So for the tuition for children that are considered special education, do those students have, are there situations where those students will pay tuition?
I don't know, Mike. I don't think so, right? Charge
okay.
special ed pre-K, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So no.
Okay. So then the tuition is from the other, 44 less the 16. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yep. You're welcome. Financial implications, we just discussed above, so I'm not going to continue to rehash that one on number 13. Number 14, we talked about already briefly, but I'll just rehash that. So the non-lapsing account can be used for educational purposes under law and under current Board of Ed policy. There is no maintenance policy, however. Up to 2% of 1 year's budget can be motioned and approved for unforeseen expenses that may arise during the school year. So that's currently, thank you so much, what our policy states. Again, there's no maintenance limit or number. There is a limit on per year. It can only be 2% or less, cannot pass that threshold. And as discussed above, it has to be motioned and passed by the Board of Education.
As you said last time, we currently have roughly 189,000, and that's ballpark one outplacement plus the transportation for one outplacement if one would move in district, plus or minus.
Give or take, yes.
Yeah, or
It's in the average range.
yeah. So we had one unexpected student come in, that would be the funds that we would need, or obviously some, other situation.
Yes.
So when you say educational purposes, what is that? Is just like for teachers?
Educational purposes are anything that we need to educate our students. So materials, staffing, if we're short, an outplacement, anything educationally related. So it's meant to be broad in its terminology. The caution there is obviously if you're going to pay for a salary for 1 year, that's got to then be, there's a reoccurring cost there that you have to consider before making such motion and thought behind that. And we would discuss that more robustly if that were ever the case to be presented here at our board.
But it can't be used for, say, when it gets hot in the spring for fans in the rooms or shades or,
If that were not able to be covered through our maintenance budget line, then that could be something brought to the board's attention.
but you could
Because it could
only,
really be educational purposes. While we're in school, it's educational purpose. You'd have to justify the expense. And again, it could only come at the vote of the board.
but then it says, however, up to 2% of your year's budget could be motioned and approved.
Yep, so that's after the auditing process, the books are all closed, and whatever is remaining there, if there was a remainder left over from the previous year, then that would have to be motioned and approved and then submitted into the non-lapsing account via the Board of Education vote.
Say that again, that last sentence.
By Board of Education vote.
No, you're saying to me, if there's money left at the end of the year, 2% of that amount can go back in.
No, maximum of 2% of the complete, of the
Budget.
entire appropriated budget of that past year. So the example, $10 million budget, 200,000 is the maximum that can be motioned to be put into a non-lapsing account for that given year.
Instead of going back to the taxpayers. Or
No, it's,
No, that's-
you'd have to have $200,000 in savings at the end of the year after the audit.
Yep.
That full 200 can go into the non-lapsing account. The non-lapsing account, my understanding and the guidance that we've been provided, is a fund that can be used for educational purposes for emergency reasons or one-time expenses. You don't want to artificially reduce your budget for a
Right.
recurring cost that's going to be year over year,
Mhm.
because you're putting a Band-Aid on something.
Yeah.
That you're going to then see next year.
Okay, so a one-time cost, could you replace 3/4 of an oil tank? I know you'd have to make up the rest of the money to make the 250, but could it be put toward an oil tank if you needed to?
I believe it can.
I can't decide that. The
Yeah.
board has to
Right, I
literally vote on
realize
that.
that.
It could be any.
I believe it can.
Yeah.
Legally,
I think
yeah.
you can.
Okay.
Legally, you could, and then the question becomes if you have something that's a planned expense, and so from a board, from a budget
Right.
management perspective, you're going to put this toward a planned expense, or have some, like, since there's not contingency in this budget as it stands, that line is effectively our contingency. So if we do have an emergency situation, whether it's, some like roof collapse, whatever it might be.
For instance, when you look at a recurring cost, if throughout the year we had someone come from out of district in district that needed, or I'm sorry, if we had to outplace somebody,
Outplace, yeah.
we could use those funds for that outplaced student, right? But we have to understand and acknowledge that we could use those funds, but next year that's going to be a cost. That's going to increase the budget.
Yeah.
But you could do it in the current year.
Okay,
Right, similar to how when in past before this non-lapsing account, and this non-lapsing account existed beforehand, it was
Right.
just, we had to go to the Board of Finance to go
to borrow,
for these
to
emergencies.
ask for
for
the
these
money.
things, Right,
Okay,
so it's the same thing.
Yeah, if it's over 20K, then it goes to the town.
right. So one other question, you quickly mentioned that about the audit being completed. At our last meeting, you said it was near completion. Is it done, our audit done now? Is our audit complete?
Our audit is
Yeah.
complete. Yeah.
Do
We've,
we ever get to go through it and see it or get a report from the auditors as to what they found or what they saw or what they liked or didn't like?
very respectfully, Penny, you've been on the board for how long? Have you ever received a
No, but I'm just
review? I
wondering.
don't have that. I'm not
just
king and
wondering
king.
why it's never been shared.
I'm not sure what you're asking for, honestly.
I was
Because
just
king and king is
wondering-
the auditors for the
Right,
town.
Right,
And it was presented, I believe, at the last Board of Finance meeting. So all of that information is out there. The educational finance system is the state's mechanism to audit every single school district in Connecticut It's the standardization of audits for all. King and King comes in and has a very select amount of items that they go through to audit for the Board of Education. They have that information, and that's how the audit is completed in a very overarching general sense. There's a lot more to that, from revenues to grants to all sorts of other things, but line by line items, looking at staffing in each building, making sure it's correctly expended based on what it was appropriated for. So, but there's no report that I don't believe a superintendent has ever provided to a Board of Education from the educational finance system.
Okay.
That doesn't exist for me to provide. I couldn't speak to that because the state of Connecticut is the one that does that entire audit. If there are any issues there, they would certainly let us know to then correct those.
Okay, so then if there was any
There are
problems
none,
that King
yeah.
and King found, the state would be the one that would,
They would notify the state and they would notify us as a town as
Okay.
well, and the Board of Education.
okay,
Yeah,
just curious.
sure.
I have asked that question before. Have not gotten that complete answer before.
Gotcha.
As a board, we don't have to know everything.
But as a board, we are spending the taxpayers' money. The taxpayers should know exactly where their money is going and how it is being spent.
If there were any findings, you would know about it. King and King would report on it. EFS would notify us through the state of Connecticut, and we would have an issue that we would have to resolve or correct.
I mean, after sitting through the meeting last week with the Board of Finance and King were there and they went through their audit for the town, line by line or section by section, and they had this report, I'm just curious as to why we've never had a report like that. Is it just something they don't do?
Is it, I mean, is
I'm
is
not
our
following that.
mechanism for that the budget readout that you provide us for every meeting where we look at what the expenditures are and?
No,
No,
no, this
okay.
is, the intent of this question, I feel, is I'm trying to navigate it because I'm not sure what the true intention is.
That was,
Because-
it's just that, I was just wondering
Because the
why.
Board of Education doesn't receive a full audit outside of what we submit everything over to King and King in a very tedious manner. I'm looking at my team over there. Tedious, I mean, every single payroll report, every single expense has to be justified. They look at every single thing. They have that. In addition to that, we have to submit another very lengthy, it took 3.5 weeks in my first year to complete an educational financial system report that again looks at every single expense and it has to be categorized. Oh boy, I probably have something here.
No, that's okay. You
It-
answered the question.
It has to be categorized by budgeted and actual expenditures, revenues from local, state, and federal. We have to submit object level spending, that's salaries, benefits, purchase services, agreements. There's functional level spending for instruction, transportation, administration, and then there's staffing and financial breakdowns. And it's, as I said, it's the uniform platform that the state of Connecticut uses for every single Board of Education. But there's no then report that's given outside of what the auditors provide as an encompassing town audit. And the law is very specific about that the town does an audit, they receive all the financials. And if there were anything that needed to be scrutinized, it would come out in multiple different varieties. It would come out from the auditors who are speaking to the state of Connecticut and would note that in the EFS system, when you submitted this little tiny line, there was a discrepancy here. That's flagged. We need to correct that. How you have to explain that. And if there was a finding, then King and King would report back to the Board of Finance. Board of Education would be notified of that as well. And then we'd have to rectify that to some degree and measure. Thank God that's not happened. But it's a very intensive process. But again, I've never heard of a EFS report being given to a Board of Education and said, hey guys, here's our audit, when it's already done via the town. The town has that autonomy or that ability to do so through King and King, which is our auditing process.
Okay.
So, sorry, I wish I had a different answer. I don't have an audit to give to the Board of Ed. And no findings either, thank God.
That's good.
Yeah, it is good. All right. Question number 15, I believe we were on. Is that about right?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, 16. All right. Just a little under or over 100 more to go. All right. Yeah. While overall enrollment is either slightly up or relatively flat, depending on the perspective, can you explain how service intensity, particularly in special education, affects staffing needs? Again, that's, as we discussed, a PPT-based decision. If a student requires those services, we must and we have to provide them. So each and every year, We receive students that we know of, and we could project those very effectively. That's what's in our budget. And if we know that the child is going to receive less special education support, that's also projected in our budget. The unknown is always the student that moves into us mid-year or in the summertime that we have to provide for. That there was absolutely no way to have a crystal ball that's going to show you every child that's moving into town and their needs, unfortunately. But as soon as we're made aware of that, we make plans immediately with the family to meet and to determine what those services will be and how we're going to make sure that we have them. And if we can't fit them within our current budget projections, then we adjust and go forward from there. Number 17, as discussed during the Board of Ed meeting, can you provide context on the growth in special education enrollment and service intensity over past several years? This was John, I believe, again, dovetailing off of John's question. The only caution I have here to add to that is you can see my commentary. I'm very proud of the special education services that we provide to the families in New Hartford. I compare them to anybody, to be honest with you. The cost of everything's going up, and I refuse to point out just special ed is the only area for increase. So better processes and screeners are used currently to ensure that no one is overlooked. That's probably, as Mike had just mentioned, one of the better tools that we have now that we did not have years ago. But that trend is consistent across other districts and throughout our state and our nation. Number 18, recognizing both the financial realities facing our taxpayers and the reductions we've made in recent years. If we were ever in a position to add back one or two items, what would make the biggest difference for students? I've never received this question. I almost did a backflip when I got it because I'm rarely asked, what would you do if you had more money to improve our educational system here? Well, first, I'm still lamenting about a Spanish program. So I would look at that as being a completely full-time program, not just 1 day a week. And I would want that to be developed with Region 7. I would want that to be very thoughtfully devised and with our other sending districts, our Campsite, Colebrook, Norfolk, everybody on board with what's the Spanish curriculum? How are we going to continue to give our students different exposure to a language that is spoken in a variety of countries and areas? The other one that's very important to me would be to maintain 2 kindergarten sections at each of our primary schools, dependent on enrollment. That would be another area that I think is really important because it's so difficult, and I'll look at Amy Kennedy specifically, to place students when you only have 1 class and then you get all these requests, yeah, such and such can't be with such and such. Well, I'm so sorry, we have 1 section here. And there's 4 corners in a room. Do you know what I'm saying? That's very difficult to do. So that would be something that I would really push for and look for, to have 2 kindergarten sections at each of our primary schools. The other very important one, I think, is to have certified teachers as interventionists, and that has no knock whatsoever on our paraeducators. They are exceptional at delivering intervention to our students. But if I look around and I know what other practices are, other districts have hired specifically math specialists or reading specialists that are curriculum focused only. Mathematics is what they live, breathe, eat, die, and do over again each and every day. And they're in charge of really taking a look at close assessments for our students, making sure the programming and making sure students are progressing through the tiers of intervention. The same would be said for a reading specialist. And those are very specific, unique, certified areas in the state of Connecticut to help progress and move our students forward. Again, I am extremely proud of the work that our paraeducators do. I don't want that to be misinterpreted at all. I'm just, someone said, if you win the lottery, what else could you add? That's what I would do. So thank you for the question. The cost of pre-K is substantially less than daycare when compared to schools like Cadence Academy, a common choice for many New Hartford families. If the program's revenue is only $70K, could we consider increasing the tuition to offset the cost of the 3 teachers? Mike just discussed that. We do that by 3% biannually. That wraps up general questions. How's everyone feeling? Good? Good? Okay, I'm going to keep going. 8:10 for those that are keeping track. Regular ed. There are no expected staff increases or decreases, I understand. Is 5% increase based on the current contract? Yes, contractual step increases and degree completions that have been sent on to our office so that we could appropriately budget. Grant decreases are driving an increase in this line item. This is under paraeducators interventionists. Is it expected that these will continue to decline? Those grants, like I said, are going to fluctuate based on our demographic of our needs. So if the poverty level increases or decreases, then we see this particular grant in this line fluctuate dependent on the affluent or not affluent. Title I. Question, you mentioned a para leaving. Are we refilling that position, or can the position be removed from the budget to save more money? Seems like this could be an option since we were looking to potentially remove a para last year. We're filling the position based on current student need. And then I also want to highlight a very important part there that one of our grants for one of our para educators is is going to be completed this current year, and that is not being renewed for the year to come. Under substitute teachers, January expenditure report currently shows we have 64.5% remaining at the 50% mark in the school year. Is the line increased intended to account for rising substitute costs? I had run a quick report. I will look it up afterward. So the current average, if you look over on the right-hand side, 3-year average substitute expenditures from mid-February through the end of the school year is 59% increase. So that's the driving force there. Substitute teachers, again, last actual was 59,355. Year-to-date, 24,871. Why is it going up to 72,500? And there you see that there's an increase in the subrate and contractual language on page 20. Provided a teacher is eligible for federal FMLA leave and has sufficient accrued days, such teacher may use up to 10 accrued sick days for purposes of child bonding in the event of birth or adoption of a child. So that's a really nice provision in the contract. And we know that our staff are getting married, they're having children, and they're starting families. So we're very happy and proud of that. So we're making sure that we account for that and any other unknowns as well. Under extracurricular activities, can this be expanded to show what activities are included, what's being removed for 7K? Expenditure currently shows 0% allocated to this budget. So this is, again, the savings there are the 6th grade musical, the overnight stays at White Memorial have been removed. That was discussed relative to liability reasons, having a lot of 6th graders in one place, and then also having a lack of staffing that would be there as well. So that was one of the other reasons for eliminating the overnight stays. Liability, staffing are the two major proponents there. So what is included is the White Memorial. So the educational experience will still take place. A sleepover will not. So that is for the nurses and for busing and, MOMS. What's MOMS? Say it again. Thank you so much. Math Olympiads. Whew. For our DARE program as well. Current expenditure question payments will be made toward the end of the school year. So that's just a general statement for all. You'll see that as I answer a lot of these questions. Hey, why is there still so much money left in different lines? Well, because we have not completed our ordering for the remainder of this year or projections for next year, or we just haven't expended those funds, or we haven't paid out stipends, or we haven't paid things out. That will come towards the end of the year. And you'll see that as a general pattern throughout our budget. Instrument repair. What instruments are we repairing? This was a new line item added last year, and expenditure shows it's overspent as a question mark. So we're replacing very old and beyond repair brass instruments, the euphonium and a brass horn. We really needed 2 of each, but that is very cost prohibitive at this time. So we've settled to ask for 1 of each. My son plays the baritone. I don't even want to share with you. It's thousands of dollars for a brass musical instrument. Thousands of dollars, not a little bit. So I rent them instead. I can't afford to buy the actual instrument. Travel 591, 50% through the year, 75% remains there. As you can see, most mileage is submitted twice a year. That's why there's a balance. Total combined of 750 budgeted. It's recommended that the line item not to remain, so it's not overspent. Making sure I'm going over to the right page. We're on page number 4. Overall budgets at 55% expended halfway through the year. Copy paper increased by 63%. Is this necessary? Last year, the paper exceeded $8,000, and there's a cost increase associated to that as well. So tied together to that, again, the paper costs are the driving factor there for teaching supplies under 2, 3, and 4, just to lump those together. Driving force for year-over-year costs of math textbooks. Once grant supported, now it's tiered off. And we've also, oh no, that's a different line, sorry. Under equipment for 730, line items increasing by 6,500 or 542. Why is that needed? Again, those are for the musical instruments that are being purchased up above. So that's why there's a variance of 542%. Special education, 1200 series. Under 111, what's the driving increase in salaries outside of contractual increases? So again, I just reiterated that. The nets grants net to only 1K impact. So what is 13% direct to salary? Yes, and it's the addition of the pre-K teacher as well. The director of student services, that part of the admin contract? Yes. Special education para educator, please confirm 1.6% salary increase is contractual. The answer is yes. Question number 2 under that same category, how long do we anticipate receiving the seed grant? Well, currently it's approved for 2 years. The governor sets a 2-year biennial budget. So for fiscal year 26 and 27, it is there. The intent though, it is for it to continue. In some of my advocacy letters that I continue to send to our representatives, to the governor, to the education committee, to anyone that'll listen to the appropriations committee, we are benefiting tremendously from seed and from DRIP grant. That's why I will continue to advocate on behalf of New Hartford Public Schools for that. And I know my colleagues around the state are also doing the same. Any funding that the state helps us with, open arms, we'd love to have it. Under special education, nurse and support, it says here, how long do we anticipate it? Again, see that above. And special education administrative assistant, is this person part of the paras contract? No, that position is part of the admin assistant contract. Moving on to page 5. Under 313, pupil services, Launchpad AI has been added. Please explain what it is and how it will benefit the district. This is an AI tool created by EdAdvance specifically. Just a reminder, EdAdvance is our local RESC, one of our supporting partners that also does our nutrition services and after-school programming. So EdAdvance specifically created that to support special education staff. The tool will reduce the paperwork burden of staff and allow the staff more time to work with students. So this is a tool that helps our staff, all of our special education staff, develop goals and assessment pieces for our kiddos. So, and Mike, thank you for that explanation. Yes, Kristen.
Is, if the tool is created by EdAdvance, does the data that is put into the tool, like, does that stay within our systems or is it synced back to EdAdvance?
Yep.
Sorry?
All HIPAA. All HIPAA compliant, so it's just for us and our internal use. We're using their tool that they created, but with our own confidentiality and privacy. Testing supplies, 76% remains. So the question there was, can this be reduced? No, we order these supplies for next year at the end of the school year. Staff takes stock of what supplies have been, they have, and then projects needed testing supplies for the following year. So they take a very careful look at which students are eligible or up for our annual evaluations versus a triannual evaluation for students. Narrative states under testing supplies, eligibility for is reviewed every 3 years. Are there mechanisms that we use, aka IEP goals, that allow for this to happen on a shorter interval where appropriate? Absolutely, yes. Parents or staff can call for a PPT meeting at any point in time to reevaluate the needs of the child. Under tuition, are we anticipating one less outplay student for the 25-26 by lowering by 77K? Yes. There's a reduction in costs and number of outplacements anticipated. Number 2, what is the driver behind cutting the educational cost share grant by 62K? Well, there wasn't a driver. It's just we spent less on tuition the previous year, and the ECG is awarded based on what money was spent in tuition the prior year. If you remember during our retreat, very complex formula. You have to look at the year prior to, then we're in a tiered system. It's 4.5 times the student per pupil cost over the amount of monies that we spent for the outplacement. That amount, that difference, then is only, they're supposed to give us 88%. That's never happened to date. So, all right. Let's see here. What strategies can be utilized? Let's see here. And investments could we make to reduce outplacements through in-district capacity? Another great question. They're all great questions, but this one, again, for thinking of what things we can do to help do some other creative thinking. An in-district program could be created. It would need the financial support of the Board of Education to hire additional staff members. This would be a revenue stream as it would be open to outside districts. Currently, we're awaiting a grant application from the state and more information on that. So that would be one mechanism. And it doesn't mean that every outplay student can come back. It's only where it is truly appropriate. If we were to develop, for example, an autism program and a behavioral program, we could bring students back with the appropriate staffing at a cost savings. And Mike and I have said this, my administrative staff have said this, and we could do a better job educating those children than an outplacement setting. I guarantee it. And our children stay in New Hartford. They don't go to another town. Sorry for my emphasis being in the table, but I get excited about that kind of stuff, you know? Yes, John.
And so to connect the dots, would that be a potential example of the quote new services that Michelle mentioned at the task force meeting?
Oh,
For-
yes.
oh,
Sorry, I was
okay.
trying to connect
Yeah,
all the dots.
yeah.
Yes.
Dorms, yeah.
That would be a potential outcome from the task force, but there are many other
Yeah, exactly.
avenues,
Just
right? I don't want to
Connecting the
speak.
dots for folks who are putting things together, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it could be one potential outcome.
Yeah.
Everything's still subject to review.
Is that the program that Mike was talking about the day that we had our tour?
Yeah,
For
we
the-
were,
For the classrooms.
that's
across
right.
the hall?
Yes, that's right.
Okay,
Yes, Penny.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, teaching supplies, remainder there. Again, supplies, there's 4 more months left. We haven't done end of year ordering, so that takes care of 616, the 1, 2 office supplies. Under equipment, 730, currently overspent per the expenditure report with an encumbrance of 6,800 and change. Did we need a one-time purchase or do we need to increase this budget? This is a hold until the seed grant is received. This was a one-time purchase based on student need, to answer that fully. Professional dues, are these contractual benefits? No, but necessary memberships for our special education director. He is our trainer for crisis prevention. So he has to go through mandatory training so that he could then implement the training for our staff versus paying an outside organization to do this. It would cost a lot more money if we were to contract third party. Under adult education, there's a dollar variance that did not calculate. So thank you for finding that. That was a typo. As you could see, there was a little, I'll blame myself, dyslexia on my behalf. If you look at the error was found in the 25-26 budget number, we need to use $7,086, not $7,806. So that's the reason for that variance there. Under nurses' salary, under health services, there's a 7% increase. Is this driven by contract? Yes, and I stated this emphatically. We're not anywhere near the market for a school nurse as a registered nurse for our district. She is the one and only for our district, and every district must have a registered nurse. You can go out and look on any other school district website. What we pay our registered nurse does not touch. We're not even in the barrel. We are not in the barrel. We are very fortunate to have Acacia Ransom, and we're trying to adjust the market to get somewhere in the ballpark of what she should truly be paid. Number 2, why are there 2 nurses at New Hartford Elementary? Well, New Hartford Elementary has only 1 nurse for the entire school. There's another 1-to-1 nurse there for a medically fragile student currently in one of our programs. Nurse substitutes, year-to-date, 1688. Why is it budget going from 3,500 for this year up to 5,000? That's because of contractual increases of PTO for paid time off. Under improvement of instruction on page 7, 92.5 remains at 50% through the year, reduced to 750. I would be in agreement with that. Yes. So that'll be adjusted accordingly. Yes, I see it. I see you hitting the button. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yes.
For back to the school nurses. So you're saying that there's only 1 RN that's required for the district. So the New Hartford Elementary nurse is not an RN.
Correct.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. Back to purchase services. If we look at the 24-25, $0 year to date is 75. Why do you need $1,000 in this budget? So that would be the cost of the LCSA student recognition dinner, which doesn't happen until the month of May. And we generously pay for the students and their families. Others are awards and teacher student recognition, and this will be spent down as the year progresses. But at the retreat, we had recognized the importance of recognizing our students and staff. So that's why that was in there as a particular item that we discussed as a board at the Board of Education retreat, that it would be important to continue to recognize our staff and our students. Professional development. Can this be decreased to a net zero with a reduced grant? 58.9 remains currently. We are maintaining our PD days. No, as we have not concluded the school year and all contractual professional development days yet. Curriculum-based online assessments. We've got 92.6 remains at the halfway point. Again, many contracts renew in the spring, and then there's already a savings there of $3,350 less than last year under that line for 618. Page 8, under Library Media Center. Huge shout out to Mr. Todd Miltmore. Do we need 60% increase in books budgeting compared to last year? Can we reuse the books we currently have purchased unless they are damaged? I could promise you that Mr. Miltmore goes through a very intense process every single year to look at every binding, every book, and catalog that to make sure that it is fit. If it is not and it can't be repaired, it's beyond repair, then it's deemed damaged and we have to recycle or dispose of that book. He's also making sure that he continues to keep up with the engaged readers that we have in our school. So they'll sometimes come here and say, do you have this series or this book or that? And we don't want to say no. We want to make sure we're keeping cataloged inventory and then purchasing our books for all of our readers in all 3 schools. He manages all 3 libraries in all 3 schools. So under technology, this was, again, something that was reiterated throughout. So there's a couple questions regarding the superintendent negotiating with an at-will employee. So administrative assistant to the superintendent, the IT director is an at-will employee, and the manager of HR and fiscal services are 3 of those examples. So this was, it was asked, can it be shared and discussed with negotiation committee before committing to it? Yes, and I did share with the entire board on June 4th, 2025. So please go back in your emails. If you have any questions about that, no problem. And the standard practice going forward, so when we renegotiate those contracts within 3 years, will be to present them to the negotiation subcommittee first and then award the contract afterward. The salary increase, is that comparable to a teacher? I said no. Again, these are not in the ballpark relative to IT directors in the state for overall salary. Again, that's our registered nurse. That's our IT director, and that's also our manager for HR and administrative services. Data system specialist, which contract is this person part of? If not part of one, who determines their increase? That is part of the admin assistant contract. So that's available online for anyone to see. So then it's NA regarding sharing it beforehand, because that is a position that is within one of the unions that the subcommittee can see. Number 9, page number 9. Is the salary increase comparable with teacher, custodians, and paras overall again? No, it's not in the ballpark relative to data system specialists in our state. Again, I welcome anyone to look that information up. And we updated those job responsibilities for both the IT director and our data system specialist to reflect what they are actually doing versus previous job descriptions. And those were shared in the month of June. Again, for any and all to revisit, those responsibilities continue to increase based on state reporting measures and other mandates that need to be accomplished.
I think you're misinterpreting the question,
Okay.
which is essentially, is the 3%, I would interpret that question as, is the 3% increase year over year like comparable to the increases that other staff members are seeing?
Oh, then the answer would be
Difference?
yes. I was talking overall salary.
Yeah, it says salary increase comparable. So that's-
Got it. Okay, so yes, comparable for the percent increase. Salary itself, no. Thank you. 321 under data managing licenses. Why such a large increase from last year? These are contractual increases for student security of data and other projects that we are doing and that are required by law, as we will no longer be sending paper copies home of, for example, state assessments. Those have to be securely stored electronically. Professional development overspent by 418% with 7,200 encumbered. Is this applied to the incorrect PD budget line? Is there a reason all PD shouldn't be on one budget? Does this line need to be increased? This is the correct PD line. PD lines are separated by departments, so it's related to securely to store student data for this particular PD line. 407 technical supplies. What is the large increase for $7,250? 41%. Currently 57% remains. Again, this is for our increase in our wireless upgrades, specifically under technical supplies, maintenance, and repairs. Technical equipment, we have there 83.6 remains at 50% through the year. There is 29.9 in capital. What is the 11K increase intended to purchase? Well, we're not finished with our purchases, as we've said, and it's $1,000 less for next year. And this is to replace outdated hardware, which is beyond its end of life and no longer can be supported. An example there would be a Promethean board. Is there a potential for an additional cut for tech equipment? It's already $1,000 less, as reflected in the current budget proposal. Professional dues, what dues are we obligated to pay? No cost allocation have been applied this calendar year. That's because, again, they haven't been paid yet in the spring typically. There's state conferences for cybersecurity. There's also our PSUG group, which is our Power School Users Group. That is also a conference that is attended for professional dues. So nothing required there, but best practice and to make sure that we are compliant with all state laws and changes in our practices. That's why that exists.
Jeff, can you
Yes.
clarify on the Promethean board? So is that, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah.
Is that a company that, or is that the type of board?
Type of board.
Promethean is not
Type
the
of-
company?
I believe it is the company because there's also smart boards, so it's the company.
Okay, and so they won't service those anymore?
When they end of year, our end of life service, so they have updates that they go through, and after approximately, I would say 8 years or so, they run out of life expectancy, if you will, or there's been other developments, or unfortunately, they can't be recalibrated, or they're not working anymore. They don't align with our other software upgrades or our hardware upgrades. So if we're purchasing a newer MacBook, sometimes when you try to connect the older ones to the newer MacBook, they don't function any longer
Okay,
because they're beyond that support.
thanks.
What
How
page?
old is our oldest Promethean board?
I don't have that answer. I wish
Well,
I
mean, we
I don't
haven't had
know.
them for that long.
I don't know that answer. I could get back to you and answer that. I'll write it down. Oldest Promethean board.
I mean, I didn't think we've had them for 8 years. I would say maybe 4.
I don't know. I don't want
Okay.
to, I don't want to
That's
guess.
fine.
I'll get that information. I'll share it with the board.
Okay.
Okay, page 12. Current year overspent, which one is this? Hold on. I'm under school offices, administrator salary. Is that where I'm at? Or am I on page 11? Sorry. Page 10? 9, 10. Come on. That's right. That's right. Keep going, buddy. Oh my gosh. Okay. So let me see if I'm in the right place. Current year is overspent by 60%? Okay. Understanding we do not have contracts up for negotiations. I have to clarify, I made a mistake. We do have 2 contracts and I apologize for that. And I thought we were done but then after revisiting them, it's because they didn't settle till so late because of the other party. The other party, yeah, the committee that keeps on rearing its beautiful head. That's, yeah, again, so I misspoke at the last meeting thinking we did not have any. We do have 2 to renegotiate. And again, those didn't end so late because the other representative on the other party was delayed by various life circumstances.
I really thought we had a year off.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Sorry. Okay, so we should plan on the need for legal services opinion as a result of the utilization task force. Consider increasing based on this and historically. I just wanted to correct that. So currently we're only overspent by $302 or 0.6%. So we have 2 contracts up for negotiations. And again, I apologize. And I'd skip my mind because I thought we were all in alignment there, but we do have
Which
2 more.
2 are we doing?
Administrative assistants and custodians will be the ones that we
Oh,
negotiate.
that's right, it's on the next line, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. I was going to say, just wait. It's coming. It's coming. Yeah. All right. So again, there was a proposed cut for that item to go back to the 35K for the 24-25, but again, with the negotiations, I did leave it as one of those contingencies that we can further discuss. I said the same thing, Frank. I said the same exact thing. Yep. Yeah, so those, if you look online, we have to start preparing for that again. I know. I know.
Remember what happened at those meetings? Where
Yeah.
we had the other side and they weren't always prepared?
Yep.
Or they were turkey hunting, something?
Life circumstances, Penny, life circumstances. All right, moving on. Board of Education meeting minutes. We have line 320. We haven't added any additional meetings. So why are we increasing by 625? Well, we've added the board retreats. We have to add an additional budget meetings as well, and the projection of any special meetings. As we've learned over the years, sometimes we need to schedule a special meeting for whatever reason. You know, we're going back and forth with a particular topic, or it's budget season and we have to come back and re-adopt a new budget. So that's why that is projected in there. Recognition, hospitality. Why increase here? We have babies being born, celebrations of life, sympathy, unfortunately, with loved ones that are lost, and medical leaves as well. So that's why that is there for an increase, and with the current remainder of this year. Under central office, manager of finance and human resources. So now I will answer this question differently. Thank you, Kristen. So if you look at number 2, because number 1, again, has been shared. Number 1, the salary increase, yes, it is comparable to the teacher, custodians, and paras, but it's, again, not in the market value for this position. So that one, apparently, I answered when I was awake, and the other one's when I was half asleep. All right. Love you all. I'm a human being just like you. All right. Administrative assistant, is $58K the actual hired salary? The answer is yes. Number 2, realizing the superintendent does this contract. Again, can it be shared? Yes. And I could share that with the entire Board of Education. Is it comparable to the teachers? No, this one is not comparable because there's a 0% increase there. If you notice, there's no change in the value. Am I going to page 11? Tim, are you keeping me on track, sir? Go. Purchase professional services. Why 30% increase? Are we able to keep this the same for $5,400? The $1,600, as we were just discussing, Penny had asked the great question about the audit, and that is $1,600 increase. Again, it is to prepare, to submit, and correct mandatory audit of the education financial system and the end of year state reporting. So those are mandatory things that we have to do, and we have to prepare. So I already know that that is going to be the increase for those reporting mechanisms that we have to put in place, working with our auditors and also working with our town accountants and books. Education periodicals, I agree. We should leave that from 200 to 400 was the proposal. We should leave that to 200. So we're going to reduce that. Office supplies, again, agreed on those, looking at it over time and reducing those to 2,000 instead of the 3,000 that was budgeted for. All right, moving to page 12. All right, under travel, 591, 91% remains at halfway point in the year, reduce instead of increase. At current time, the balance is about 60%. So based on last year's travel, this was overspent. For office supplies, again, we're in agreement here, or I would be in agreement that these should be decreased. So it says possibly to reduce to 5,250 instead of the 5,800 in the new budget. Again, most items are purchased in the spring. That's why there's monies there still. Under equipment, again, some of the questions were, hey, why are we maintaining, what things are we maintaining, or why are we asking for an increase? The particulars are here. With school handheld radios, those are costly. Filing cabinets needed, or office equipment such as chairs, that would be the purpose there. Custodian salaries. Given our aging facilities, are we investing enough in our custodial staff to ensure small problems don't become big problems? I would say yes. And we're doing better and better, as I reported to the Board of Education regarding OSHA recently. So we're going to continue to improve our practices, continue to improve better PPE for them so that they have that equipment when they're mixing or utilizing chemicals. So we are doing a good job now. We're going to do even better going forward, again, in alignment with OSHA practices. Part-time summer custodian, unable to locate an expenditure report. That's because the account was changed to 112 because it's support staff and not the substitute staff. And I think that happened in a couple other of the areas of the expenditure report as well. Page 13 for utilities. Those are mostly electrical costs that are going up. There's an 8% increase there for all of our utilities. And that's, again, generated by electricity, which we all know in the state of Connecticut is all over the place. For emergency.
Stop there. I think I might ask that. I think the refuse contract, mostly electrical costs. No, I think I'm specifically saying there's an 8% increase in trash removal.
Yep. Yeah, that's accurate.
So that is contractual.
That's contractual too. And I was doing it as an overall for the utilities, totally. Yep. 406, under emergency repair. Great to have drip. Based on historical data, should we net zero on this? We can remove via recommended contingencies that I presented to the Board of Education last time. Again, the board knows how I feel about emergency repairs. Tomorrow, Jamie can call me. Tomorrow, Ross or Mark can call me and say, hey, guess what happened? And we need to repair something and we didn't have the funding for it. So it's one of those contingencies that's currently existent in the budget that the board can certainly discuss and can remove. Building maintenance under 407. These are all separate from Oak Hill work identified in capital, correct? The answer is yes. Do we have funds set aside at New Hartford to continue to extend the useful life of the roof based on the Board of Selectmen decision to halt the roof replacement? No, no funds are set aside. What that would look like if there was an emergency would be to deplete the maintenance and emergency repair lines completely. Number 3, are we deferring any significant maintenance that could create capital issues? Absolutely. Those are the oil tanks. That's why we are under the guise of 2031. All of the oil tanks must be removed and replaced. Otherwise, they are tagged and we don't want anything to do with that.
But the oil tanks aren't deferred maintenance, are they? We're not neglecting any maintenance on the oil tanks right now that would extend the life of the oil tanks. My understanding is that the oil tanks, like when they're done, they're done. So again, my read of this is that are we deferring any significant maintenance that could create capital issues? It's not like the oil tanks are not a maintenance issue. They need to be replaced at the end of their life.
I think it's
So
deferring
I think the
money.
question is like,
Deferring money.
again, are we like
That's how
making?
that's how I
would-
read it.
What? Right, yeah, we're not neglecting them.
We're not neglecting them, no, because we
But-
have our annual inspection,
Right.
tightness tests, all of those things.
Again, I would interpret that question as something like, like it's something like the roof at New Hartford Elementary, right? Like, are we putting off making any minor repairs to the roof that could be an issue because of this? I don't think the oil tanks are like the right
Okay.
way to think about that.
I apologize. That's what I
Right.
was thinking in my mind.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
I just want to, just like there's nothing we can do about the oil tanks. They will
Correct.
need to be replaced.
Outside of, again, in a 5-year capital plan, like I
Right.
put forth, because there's no way possible to do all 4
Right.
in 1 year. So
Right.
that's what I was
Outside-
thinking for maintenance, because that's a large expense.
All 4 of those oil tanks need to be replaced regardless of maintenance we are or are not doing on them right now. That's what I want to make sure is very clear.
Got it.
Yeah, okay.
The roof would be another example then for that.
Right.
For
Right.
sure. Because that seam continues to leak from the old building to the new. But there are also many pockets of the roof that are not operational
Yep.
and they leak.
Yep.
So. All right. Service contracts. There was a question about light inspection being picked up with fire protection team for cost savings. I don't know, but I will absolutely inquire. Document shredding appears to be listed twice. Yes, thank you for catching that error. It's increased to 1,000. The other one has been removed. What is driving the doubled cost for Western State Mechanical? This is due to in-depth knowledge and service. They are phenomenal. They are a completely different company that God bless you, that we've been working for. They also service Region 7. They come with amazing reputation. They are extremely I could contact them today and they put the schools as priority. They'll come right out to us with any issues. We've had frozen pipes, alarms going on, and they come right out to us if we ask them to come out. So they are a different category of, again, speaking of deferred maintenance, this contract is worth it over and over and over again because their in-depth knowledge and service has already far exceeded my expectations. And again, in comparison to our previous contractor. Driving triple cost for the fire and alarm monitoring. They've taken over the alarms. Previously, this was with Johnson, and it's a 5-year inspection year. So that's why we have that. There's additional cost there. So that answers 5, also answers 6. And number 7, under service contracts, wide HVAC double. Again, we've got a new company, West State Mechanical. Under service contracts, why are we now adding advanced nutrition services and security document shredding? Didn't we have those before? Document shredding was moved from plant operations to service contracts. Advance was previously paid through the lunch program, but not the operating budget. Number 9, why does Bakerville not have a sprinkler system? Has it been discussed adding a cistern or other water source other than the existing well? This was obviously built in 1941. And I don't know the code in 1941. I wasn't alive. But I'm assuming that that has been grandfathered. I followed up and asked our lead custodian, Jamie Hirschkel. He reached out to Bob Diorio, and that was the best that they can give. I see Kirby. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was my question. So
Yeah, he
that's
reached
one
out
that
to
just
Bob.
drives me nuts because if you were to build any school today, you would be required to put a sprinkler system in.
100%.
That building is a wood frame, and if, heaven forbid, there were a fire in that building, there is no water. But New Hartford Elementary does, and so does Antolini. So I'm not sure how that's not something that, as a parent, that bothers me.
Yeah.
So has that ever been discussed in prior years, considering adding a system like that?
No, not under my time here. It may have been.
I don't think there are many parents that don't. I've asked parents just if
Do
they know
you
that.
know?
There are so many parents that don't know that there's no sprinklers in in the building.
They're on.
You know,
I
so
never really thought about it.
yeah. But I
think-
mean,
didn't
I think
that-
about it.
I think that issue came up 10 years ago when they were talking about Bakerville. I remember hearing and talking about that, and it was kind of just brushed aside, that idea.
Yeah.
I expect that to come up as one of the things on the task force when they're talking at the next task force meeting, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to my portion of the meeting because we've still got some time. But the next task force meeting will be the official presentation regarding the state of the facilities and the buildings. And sort of like, we'll go through, sort of like, hey, like, this is what's not up to code right now. Like, this is what you would expect to have to do in order to get this up to code, again, as part of the assessment for what needs to be happening with any of the buildings.
Yeah. Just in personally talking to the chief, there's definitely, other than the sprinkler system, there's a lot of things that are in that similar grandfathered situation. So I'd say if Bakerville remains long-term, it should be, I personally think it should be considered that a sprinkler system is implemented.
Noted. Thank you. Equipment repair. Are we deferring any significant repairs that could create capital issues? I hope I'm getting this one right. We are slowly but surely, we're trying to jimmy rig, I don't know the word for this, just to put pieces together to continue the snow tractor that we have at New Hartford Elementary, but eventually we're going to have to replace it completely. So we're trying to maintain it with the knowledge of our expert Ross. He's very good at tinkering with mechanicals, but this one would be something that we would look to put onto a capital piece eventually.
And replace it.
Yeah, and replace it fully.
So again, you're not deferring the maintenance, but you are deferring the capital request for replacement.
Yeah, I'm not sending it out to get repaired as my defer maintenance part. I'm relying on
When
my
you're
custodian's
deferring
expertise.
maintenance, it means you're looking at things and saying, I should fix this, but I'm not going
But
to
I'm
bother
going
with
to
it
put
right
it
now.
off. Yeah.
Right. So if you're addressing the maintenance, then it's not deferred maintenance.
Okay. I just didn't want to send it away
Yeah.
and pay
No,
the money
okay.
for
I'm
it.
not trying to, I did not ask those questions, but whoever did ask those questions, I would assume that that's what they were getting at.
There you go. All right, for fuel, it looks like not able to be located on the expenditure report. We'll make sure that we add that. It's probably rolled up, but again, we could break that out. Property liability insurance, this quote rate went down in 24-25, creating the savings, and then informing savings on 26-27 projections, question mark. Yes, and that information is provided by the town. So we are insured with the town, with KERMA, and those rates are jointly given to the town and to the Board of Education. So, all right, moving on to employee benefits, nothing there. Page 15, pupil transportation 2900 series. Under special education bus leases, if we are projecting less outplacement, can we reduce here as well? We saw substantial savings in 24-25 and current year has 83% remaining at the midway point in the year. Well, in December, again, as the case in the you just never know. In December, we add an additional van, which will increase costs. This line is extremely volatile and based on student needs. So it is one of those contingencies. As I mentioned at the end of last Board of Education meeting, we could discuss that further for sure. All right, moving under capital. There's 21K in the operating budget and technology for technical equipment. What's the divide between the operating and the capital? This one would be for student devices in capital. Staff computers, Promethean boards, battery backups would be in the operational budget. I noticed that some of your sheets are blank, so I'll say that again. Student devices are in capital. Staff computers, Promethean boards, battery backups are in the operational budget. Number two, there was a comment regarding underground storage tank replacement. Costs have the risk of exponentially increasing should they deteriorate and leak. Absolutely. Hazmat cleanup costs are very high. Yep, you're absolutely right. And the reporting of such has also changed very recently with the state of Connecticut. So something that I would think to propose would be an above ground versus underground storage tank. And then again, to explore and revisit propane versus oil. Last time it was cost prohibitive, but we could revisit that again as a Board of Education as we're looking to remove those tanks from the ground. Again, I would propose having them above ground. So you eliminate the inspection of them every single year. You could actually see what's going on. You don't have to wonder if it's leaking in the ground. You don't have to do a tightness test, for example, to that degree. So the regulations change for UST. And then propane, again, we're going to finalizing updated contracts because Penny had asked again. So I've revisited and went back to all the contractors that have provided original quotes, and I'll bring them to the next meeting as soon as they're finalized.
Is
Penny.
this something that would go before the task force?
It might be part of it. I could submit that information once I have it.
Would it be something that Michelle would, is it within their purview
It could be.
to suggest something like this?
Sure. It could be when we're looking at energy
The
efficiency
transi-
buildings and things.
Sorry, the transition from oil to propane.
From oil to propane? As-
I'll follow up with her and
It
just
could
see
be.
if that's something that is on her radar.
Okay. I mean,
If they're going to propose replacement, I'm sure it's going to be dual fuel.
It should be.
going on the assumption or going on the notion, whatever you want to call it, of going from 3 to 2 schools, would that be something she would look into as a cost savings for us if we went from oil to propane and then only had to do it for 2 buildings instead of 3 buildings? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not making that, I'm not making the statement that, yes, we're going to get rid of a school because, oh, God forbid it would be out there tomorrow. So, in the far reaches of the Neverland.
Okay.
I'm sure it'd be something to consider.
Okay.
Number 3, why is NHES roof not on the capital plan? This is paused because of the task force outcomes and recommendations. Again, to just walk that back, the roof was slated to be replaced. That was with the Board of Selectmen. We had gone to town meeting. We had read the resolutions. We had then attained the services of Colliers to help us with the entire process, from getting brand new architectural designs to ensuring that the replacement of the roof met every single regulation and need and up-to-date code. That was then paused because the state of Connecticut Colliers made us aware that the state of Connecticut would reimburse us at a lower rate of reimbursement for the roof. So if the roof were to cost $1.4 million, as an example, Colliers had made us aware of in the state's formula of reimbursement that we would not get the 52% reimbursement rate because our student to square footage ratio was lower than what the state would like to see. It doesn't mean that they would give you less than the 52% definitively, but Colliers was giving us that information that if you were to present this project to the state for reimbursement, you could potentially get less than that. And the approximate amount would have been $300,000 instead of the $700,000, just to use some quick down dirty math. So instead of getting $700,000 for a nice coupon, you get a $300,000 coupon. I don't know about you, I would still take the coupon or for a reimbursement on a school roof. But that project was paused at that point in time. Once that was brought to surface to light, the Board of Selectmen decided to stop and pause that project to then work with us as a school utilization and Board of Finance and everyone together to say, wait, before making investments, let's take a look at everything that we have purview over and making sure that we make the right decision for our town going forward.
Jeff,
Yes.
just a comment on that, on line 2 for the hazmat inquiry.
Mhm.
If those tanks there's a service provider, so I would assume the liability would be on them, not on the school, if there were ever an issue like that, if they're being maintained
Yeah,
properly.
I'm sure we'd be in litigation for sure with them.
Okay.
Yeah. that it would turn into something like that.
Yeah.
As they are our inspectors, correct? They submit our reports for us. Absolutely. So there'd be more to discuss there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
they didn't notice an issue or,
Thanks.
Tim, did you want to add anything else on the roof component? No? Okay. All right. Number 4, under capital expenditures, I assume that the refresh for classrooms 24 or it's 25, 26, and 29 are the Oak Hill classrooms, yes. As they left last year, couldn't we have started on those classrooms then? No budget for unexpected departure. That budget had already been approved and done, and then they vacated for reasons, and that wasn't budgeted for. We couldn't go back in time and say, wait, hold on, let's put that in the budget now. So that's why it was not budgeted for. Page 15, getting to page 16. We're winding down. Number 5 was a comment with all the money spent. There was no question there. Repairs was number 6. Again, that is something I just addressed. Number 7, how long is expected useful life of our student devices and what replacement cycle is built into the budget? It's every 6 to 8 years, and that's via capital and operational equipment repairs. In fact, the administrative team meets together to discuss that and what the replacement cycle should look like. That is by survey of all of our equipment that we have within district, and then developing a year-to-year projection and look at when they're going to be at end of life before recommending a replacement.
A question on that.
Yes.
Or for Chromebooks in general, when students are allowed to start bringing those home, are there ever situations where you find that they're damaged and unused or become non-usable?
Yeah, and we have insurance for that to help out. So the parents can purchase insurance to help cover the cost of that. That does happen. If we could repair it, we do. But if it has to be sent out, then we have to send it out.
Okay.
But that brings me to another point regarding Chromebooks, because it's been in the social media these days. And our configuration of our Chromebooks is very closely monitored by Securely. So all the credit goes to Paul for doing so and getting that set up. So if you were to access the internet at home, what is the other example you gave me? Jamaica, Tanzania, wherever it is, those configurations still are on that Chromebook. So if they are going to try to attempt to look at something illegal, inappropriate, not age-related, that is flagged and is not allowed to be done on those particular devices on our Chromebooks. Can't speak to what other districts do. I just know that that's the mechanism that we have in place here for our usage of Chromebooks when they are at home. It does not preclude parents like me, parents like you, from supervising our children when they're on devices. That's how we resolve this situation in a much more meaningful manner. Read Anxious Generation if you haven't read it, by Jonathan Haidt, and you'll get a very, very eye-opening experience to what social media, smartphones, cameras have done to children in our nation and across the world, backed by a lot of research. Read that, and then you'll understand, and maybe even take a pledge not to have your children on social media or have these devices before the time is. So that's what I'll say about that. Number 8. All right. Can you explain the instructional purpose of the interactive boards and how they support teaching and learning, particularly compared to older classroom technology? I tried to make this brief, but it was hard to. But interactive boards are instructional tools designed to actively engage students in learning rather than simply displaying information. While older classroom technologies such as overhead projectors or the standard whiteboards primarily supported teacher-directed presentation, interactive boards allow for dynamic, student-centered instruction. There's been significant shift to digital materials as well. Most of our curriculum materials, including teaching slides and online resources and other platforms such as Google Classroom, are all digital. Teachers and students need a way to display and interact with digital content seamlessly. Interactive boards serve as the hub for integrating video, simulations, slides, assessments, and collaborative tools. Our boards are used all day long by teachers and students in grades preschool all the way up through 6th grade. Number 9, are we investing in leading edge technology, or are we primarily maintaining reliable functional systems that meet instructional needs? I would say the latter is the case, maintaining reliable functional systems that meet instructional needs currently. Number 10, why can't we use some of the money in the non-lapsing account? Again, I've already visited that. That's by Board of Education vote only. The superintendent cannot vote. There was a comment regarding underground storage tanks, have that risk. Cleanup costs are very high. Why is the roof not on capital plan? Again, awaiting outcomes of task force since the project was paused. Number 3, $100,000 simply sit in a savings account. Should we hold on asking for those funds for the underground tanks until the task force work completes? Honestly, for this one, we can't wait. Not honestly. What I know is we cannot wait. Risking violations, tagged tanks, or contamination of the soil, that's going to be a much larger headache for everybody. And again, I've reiterated, and I'll say it again, I don't have a facilities director. I am the facilities director in town, so I must manage this project from beginning to end with all of my engineering background that was provided at Central Connecticut State University. I'm being facetious. But I don't have a facilities director, so I cannot manage 4 different projects going on at the same time. It has to be done step by step so that I could manage it, make sure it's done seamlessly from beginning to end, and that we'd have no violations whatsoever. Number 4, if we do receive the $100,000, will the funds earn interest in some way? Yes, but the town, that's the town's. That's their interest, not the Board of Education. We are not in the profit business. We're not going to be investing those funds. That the town will and should, and they do an amazing job. Board of Finance reports out on that all the time. That interest will belong to the town to expend within their general funds as deemed appropriate. Okay, little bit longer. Sorry, everybody. If there are other questions, comments, we do have a little punch list to go through now because of what was provided here. Thinking about some of the contingencies that I provided last time, could discuss that now under the board because this is part of our budget workshop so that we can move further along in the adoption of the budget by the Board of Education, or we could wait. I'll defer to the board chair to lead.
Let's start by any other questions that may not have been asked in these 115 plus questions and answers. Anybody not get?
Well, the capital budget and our budget are 2 separate budgets, right?
Yes, they both get presented, but we can, again, our role here is to make adjustments or ask questions on either or.
Okay.
Jeff, I just want to follow up on the para educator that's leaving or retiring. I believe you said we have a grant this year that's not going to be in place next year. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, so
Is
that
the $30,000 or?
no, different grant,
Different grant.
behavioral health grant, right, Mike? Am I thinking of the right one? Or RBT? Thank you. A mental health grant. Thank you. That one will expire, and that's not.
Do you know how much that is approximately or guess?
Don't know.
No.
Off the top of my head, I don't know that. Sorry. Total. 130? Okay. Approximately 30,000 per year, but different. That's different than the
Than that
the
one.
position that is vacated.
Which
Thank you.
one is that? What is the grant called?
That's no longer listed on,
It's not on there anymore.
yep.
Okay.
Yep. Because that's not for next year. That ends and it's done.
What is the $100,000 for? That's mentioned on this last page?
That is for the beginning of earmarking funds to start replacing the oil tanks. $100,000 to start. And under the 5-year
Okay.
capital, if you
All right.
look on the last page of the budget,
I don't
You'll
have
s-
mine with me. sorry.
okay. The last page here just shows what that progression would look like so that we can begin to earmark those funds to
Gotcha.
remove and replace.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
On
Any other
page
questions?
11,
Go ahead.
Can we organize capital budget and then go back to operating, or are we, or how are we gonna go back and forth?
If we want to start, yeah, if we want to stay with capital, I mean, we can, or we can go to the budget. I'm okay just asking
capital's
questions.
short.
You have questions on capital, Frank?
No.
No. Do you have questions on capital?
I'm not objecting to the one question. It's like, all for planning ahead, it's just from we have several items that are pending the direction from the task force and the boards. So does it make, in light of that, does it make sense to ask for the $100,000 in capital now? Or does it make sense to hold on that pending the task force?
I mean, there's
Well,
4
no,
tanks at all
no.
schools.
Yeah, we,
Oh,
all
sorry.
Yeah, no, I know.
right, so what, we have to ask questions that the superintendent can answer right now. And then once we finish the process of asking questions that the superintendent can answer, because he can't answer that question,
Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
right? And then from there, we need to make some motions
Yeah.
and have motion in second for discussion on any changes or anything we want to give the direction to our superintendent to go back. Right, the ultimate goal is that we have to get to a budget, both overall budget and capital, that we will then adopt and present to the Board of Finance. Right?
Thank you for the clarification. On the process side, we have that being workshops. When do we need to have that budget adopted?
What was the schedule?
Before the Saturday meeting?
Before the workshop?
Yeah, before the Board of Finance.
Which I think is March 14th, maybe.
Sounds right to me.
There's a capital expenditure.
CapEx is different. That's just a small group of individuals.
Okay, on March 10th.
Yeah, budget workshop is March 14th, correct. CapEx is March 10th.
That's Tom from our board. Representative from the different boards meets to talk about the capital projects.
Okay.
This meeting and the meeting on, or workshop on March 3rd to finalize what we would send forward.
That's correct. Yep, our goal would be to have an adopted budget by March 3rd. Yep. Okay, so is there any questions in addition to questions that are, in fact, did you have something else?
Yeah, page 11, where you marked reduced to 2,000 on a couple of things. Is that something that you're proposing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So that would change that number slightly, that 3.96.
Correct. 392
Okay.
is where I think we're at, based on those smaller adjustments. But the larger conversation still looms with the contingencies, which I would continue to recommend to the board to discuss.
Do you think that possibly with these small changes that are here, we could see a new budget?
Right now,
Well, not right this instant.
I
but
could share it.
Like in 24 hours.
Yeah,
So
but I'd rather have those further discussions regarding the contingencies, right? Because then I could present to you a budget versus, oh, here's one budget, then it gets confusing. Here's another budget. Right? I'd rather
I'd
avoid.
rather see a budget that has all the changes made to it.
Yep.
Before that's just me, before I decide what I'm saying yes or no.
Sure. So right now, just go with 392 based on some of these small changes that were made. But again,
I thought it was
I'm
395.
Maybe just a summary of
Makes sense.
the decreases.
Sure.
Just not by line item, but just the total decrease is $10,000 or $15,000, whatever the number
Mhm.
is.
So let's stay with, are there any other questions regarding clarifications or information that was presented in the budget, in the superintendent's proposed budget? Okay, now typically what we've done here is we've had motions and seconds to give the superintendent direction on what we'd like him to do with the budget that we have in front of us. We have some small changes that were peppered throughout this document, this 17-page document. There's probably a half dozen to a dozen items that, again, I think that there's some room on, including those contingencies that Superintendent Sister is referring to.
Mhm.
I'm going to say I don't think it's our place to tell the superintendent where to cut the contingencies. It's really, he has to do that based on historical data and knowledge. So what we've typically done in the past was we've given the superintendent a target and to come back to us with what changes he would propose to get to our target. So does anybody have a motion they'd like to make?
I do. I'll motion the the ones that he's already put in here to, like the one I just mentioned, to, yeah, to keep that. I motion that we keep the number as it is at that 3.92.
Second.
So we have a motion by Frank to keep it at the 3.92. We have a second by Eric. Any discussion?
Yeah, my thought process is we should be trying to get a little bit lower than that. I know, we see the last 2 years we're coming in at what, 8 or 9% originally, and we're dropping them down to 4.78, 4.98. But if we look at the history of the last 9 years, even with those high numbers from the last 2 years, we're at like a 2.9 average of an increase. So just because the last 2 years were high, we shouldn't be like, oh, this is great because we're at almost 4% instead of an 8 to start. We should be trying to drop this down to somewhere around a 3, I would think.
I think we should wait until Board of Finance gives us direction in that regards.
I'm going to add that I was surprised that you were able to get the budget under 4, having just negotiated so many contracts. How many contracts did we just negotiate? 4. So kudos to you for getting it
That's my team, yeah.
under 4. I was very surprised and happy with it.
Any other discussion on the motion?
But we did have that one high one, but that was only because we didn't want to go to whatever it is, mediation, because it would have come in higher possibly. I agree with Tim. I'd like to see it go lower than the 3.2. I'd be very happy with 2.9.
Is anyone good at math to say how much would need to be cut to get to that point?
Yeah, that's easy. Not the math.
Just
Well,
remember-
We have to vote on this motion, but if you were to take last year's budget, you would have to, oh, boy, that doesn't make sense. You'd have to cut another $110,000 out of the budget to get to a 2.9.
We have to ask ourselves, why do we want to cut? He put forth a really reasonable budget, something that we never expected. So at this point, this budget, in my opinion, should go straight to the Board of Finance. They're probably going to give us some suggestions to make cuts, but there's no reason to cut right now. The time would be after the Board of Finance gives us recommendations.
I mean, my thought process is that our taxes have been increasing astronomically since the point that I moved here in 2017, like outrageously. And a lot of that is the Board of Ed budgets. So you look at people who are stuck on fixed incomes, we can't just continue to hammer them left and right year over year, where they're going to end up having to move out of town or sell their homes. We want to try to keep those people in town and entice other people to move into town while also keeping a very good educational system.
The Board of Finance does not tell you which lines to cut. They just give you a dollar amount or a percentage that they would like to see. I agree with Tim. There are people in this town that cannot afford to heat their houses or feed their children.
Board of
because
Ed,
the education budget takes up the majority of the tax burden to the town. It's,
the Board of
74
Ed
cents
is
on the dollar.
responsible for doing what's right for the kids. Cutting another $100,000 out of an already reasonable budget is going to affect the children. It's going to affect our school system.
it won't.
You sure about that, Penny?
I'd rather cut the budget and have people stay in town than then say to them, I'm sorry, we have to make your taxes go up. You'll have to find someplace else to live.
Would
or
you
you'll
like,
have
would you
to
like
live on the
families to
streets."
leave town because there aren't enough programs in the school? Would you like
We have
families to leave
plenty of
town because there's not a
programs.
Spanish program, or because the band program is getting smaller, or for any other reason?
We
So
don't have the
families leave
Spanish-
towns for that reason as well.
Do you know why we don't have the Spanish program? Because it wasn't aligning with Region 7, I believe. We do have a band program. The only thing we don't have is before and after school band practice.
The point is you keep cutting, if we keep telling Jeff to cut, he's going to have to cut programs. He's going to have to cut staff. He's going to have to cut teachers. And our education here in town is not going to be as high level as it is now.
It
I don't-
will always be high level.
I don't think that's necessarily true this year. I think we're in a little bit of a different situation with the, the emergency repairs, which we have the opportunity to cut down. Personally, I never want to get rid of a teacher, but we have an opportunity here where there's a paraeducator that's leaving. We're going to be losing a grant next year, so we could save money there. We have different options where we're not, laying off teachers, because when we do hire, we should be trying to retain those teachers and not just hiring for somebody to be able to be here for 1 year and then cutting them next year when we lose a grant.
What happens when we knock it down to 2.9 and then send it to Board of Finance and they tell us to cut another 1% or whatever? Now we're stuck with a 1.9% budget and a lot more cuts.
I don't think they would do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
would.
I don't think there's any reason to be contentious with each other. I think the last 2 years, the budget has been so high that's why it's like cut. If we can come in with a extremely reasonable budget, I don't see them sending it back and saying cut more. 2.9, 3.0 is an extremely reasonable budget for the times, and I think that it would probably be something that would go through without a hitch.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
I would love for there to be the 2.93%, but just we look at our fixed costs as Jeff put, we've got the primary budget drivers that are 90+% of our total budget increase. And then also looking back to the presentation that Michael did about not tonight's presentation or discussion, but the slides he put up with their dramatic increase in the intensity of services, the number of students in special education. These times aren't like times of the past 10 years. The dramatic increases outside of our control. I think that we have a job to communicate to our town what's happening. And also I think there's plenty of opportunities for advocacy from the state with the ECS grants. We're doing some here. The Winstead First Selectman put an excellent post out. We have a number of members of our community, some who are at this meeting, some who are not at this meeting, some who have left this meeting, who do a ton of advocacy for their perspectives on the schools. Would love to have more of the advocacy toward ECS. There's some great heating assistance programs and food assistance programs in town that are often not known about. There's a state tax credit for the property taxes for the elderly that's not often discussed. And so not that we together can tackle all of that, but together as a town coming together, I think there's a lot of programs and levers we can pull outside of just cutting the budget further and jeopardizing education for the kids and also property values for our town. So I think we come in very reasonable given the constraints we have, especially the contracts we have, the special education costs, and so I think how we can make this work as a town versus cutting more here.
I do want to say that something that stuck out to me is that 74 cents of every dollar of our taxes is spent on education. And so I do think that when it comes to the oil tanks, hypothetically, I don't remember what the numbers were as far as the expenditure per year on that, but perhaps maybe 50,000 in the first year because we don't know what the utilization task force will come back with. And then adding that 50,000, to 2 or 3 years from now, that would be a huge impact to the budget.
That's only in capital.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Forgot they're separate.
That's a great thought, but yes, it's only in capital.
Newbie, sorry.
I'm with you, but we're not there yet.
That would be nice.
Yeah. And separate but related, but hopefully with the 74%. I know I've been watching the timelines. The regional budget, I believe, is released tomorrow evening. I know they've been talking about significant cuts. So hopefully the cuts there will help to reduce that 74% for our town and give some relief to our taxpayers. Yeah, yeah. So have you seen numbers or just heard? I've heard it's going to be low, but it's just, So I think that's a source of relief for our taxpayers, which I agree is important.
Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we have a motion by Frank and a second by Eric to direct the superintendent to reduce the overall increase to 2.9%.
Wait, no.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Maintain.
I'm sorry. Yes. That's what I meant. To maintain the 3 point, yes. The 3.92, I'm sorry. Yes, I misstated that.
To what now?
To maintain 3.92 as presented with the minor adjustments throughout the 118 questions. All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? That is a tie. Motion fails. Okay. Do we have another motion? You know what, I'll make a motion if I could. I will make a motion that we request that our superintendent go back to review the budget to get us to a 3.3% increase, which would be $340,714. That is going back to find right around $70,000. Understanding that is taking $50,000. It's taking $50,000 to $70,000 after the adjustments we made today out of the contingencies for whether it be special education, tuition, transportation, legal fees, or repairs. So we would be taking some level of risk there, not knowing, again, if someone came into the district that needed those services. As I go through all these questions and comments and the responses here, there was the find of, I'll say, a half dozen to a dozen items, which is great. To be able to reduce this to the 3.92. But looking at what we have in our budget for the contractual increases, health insurance and the bus contract at $390,000, almost $391,000. This is really taking $50,000 out of services, right? It's either services or contingencies. So again, my motion is to ask our superintendent to come back to us with his proposal to get us to a 3.3% increase or an increase this year of $340,714. And again, that 70,000 is on $10.7 million.
I'll second the proposal.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Tim. Is there any discussion?
My concern, kind of addressed by Eric, is let's say that, we could live with that 70,000 of contingency money taken out, but that's our wiggle room if the Board of Finance comes back, and they will. So then where do we go is my question.
I think my response to that, and again, this is just my opinion as one person and the person putting together the motion, is that we have to trust the Board of Finance is looking out for the best interests of our school systems as well, right? The superintendent has put a very responsible budget forward, in my opinion. We've asked, 115 plus questions to be able to gain clarity. We've been able to make some adjustments here, but this document that's here, that we have copies online, we have copies here in place, again, allow others to understand the inner workings of our budget, right? So understanding all this, in my opinion, gives the Board of Finance and the community and the ability to look at where we're spending our money, right? In addition to just this budget, which is kind of hard to read for some people, but this has a lot of questions and a lot of responses that give them more information. And I would trust that the Board of Finance equally wants an educational system. And this does reduce our contingencies, or our superintendent presents to us where to come up with these funds. But it puts the budget in line in a good year. And, you know, you're right. I mean, contingencies are there for the what ifs. We don't have that, and that's going to be understood by the Board of Finance if we take it out of there.
I guess my experience last year, I just don't have that same level of confidence that you do.
Wouldn't the non-lapsing account be an option, though, in a situation where one of those contingencies would arise? And that balance is 100 and, what did you say it was, 189? So that's substantially more than $70,000. I just want to point that out.
Well, last year, and in last year's budget, we used contingency money to save some positions. And that rug was pulled out from under us by the Board of Finance. That's what happened.
I think if we go into this with honesty instead of trying to play a game, like I'm not really into playing games, and I know there's some tact to certain things that we have to do, but I'm really not a game player like that. So I think if we go in with some honesty, getting the budget as low as we possibly can, then hopefully we get some reciprocal honesty coming back from the other side where they're not playing with our numbers so much.
I didn't think we used any of that non-lapsing money for those positions last year. We did?
Yes, there was a motion and approval at the board level to
Okay.
use money. Yep.
We're talking about trust here. We've got to trust what Jeff sees as a need for our district. We've got to trust him. And if he says 3.92 is what we need, and he's looked at everything and he's made cuts, to me, that is the lowest we can go, 3.92. If we go lower, he's going to have to take out some things that we're not going to like.
I mean, I think there's no doubt that we all trust Jeff. He's done a phenomenal job, as we all know. But if we just took whatever budget he brought in every year, we would have had an 8% last year. I don't think that we can do that either.
I would, and again, my motion is for the superintendent to bring back his proposed reductions to get to that value. So doesn't mean we have to take them. We'll look at them at our next meeting.
Is there a list that adds up to the 70,000?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and we don't practice just telling them where to cut, right? Because
No, I know.
again, between our
Yeah.
superintendent and our administrators,
Yeah.
Right.
Because when you mentioned contingencies, I was trying to think through kind of where, like,
there's a list of them that was part of our budget report list. So we have contingencies for special education, 100,000, special education transportation, 45,000, legal, 20,000, and emergency repairs, 32,000.
oh, so 70,000 out of that.
If that's for the superintendent.
Well, yeah, I
Such
can't tell
a
him. That's just,
yeah.
that's what that was kind of the basis for your thinking.
So we have contingencies in here, right? We have I mean, again, what I'll say is a great year of not getting an 8% budget proposed to us from the beginning, right? I think we can look a little bit deeper and maybe take a little bit more risk if we have to. Right? That's up to our superintendent.
Realizing we had the tri-chairs meeting, is that an opportunity for some discussion and perspective on the budget options?
No, because it's just the chairs, and the chairs aren't going to speak for the rest of the boards.
Got it.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? It's on the floor.
When you are considering what you might reduce in costs, I just don't want it to affect the children like it did last year with some of their programs being cut. I think there are some positions that maybe we could do without. But I don't want to see the children's activities be hurt.
If that's the case, then you vote for 3.92.
I don't think so.
Is there an option for assuming 3.3 where we could see variations of different ways that we could come down? Like,
We did that last year. That was
it gets
the
messy.
direction that was provided to the superintendent last year, was to come up with different schemes to get to different places, and that it didn't work out well. It was just, it was almost, it was a chess game that wasn't played well.
Okay.
So, years prior to that, for at least as long as I've been on here, we've provided the superintendent a target and said, in your professional opinion, with your administration, how could you get here? And then that was brought back to the board for the board to decide. Is there any additional discussion? All right, seeing there is none, all those in favor of asking our superintendent to bring back his proposals to get to an increase of 3.3% increase, or a value of a increase of $340,714. Please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? That motion fails. Okay, does anybody have another motion to put on the floor?
I'll go with the motion to make it, get it down to a 3.0.
I'll second it. For discussion purposes.
So, we have a motion by Tim, we have a second by Penny for 3.0. Any discussion? While you're doing that, I'll do the math to tell you where that lands.
I don't want to lose people working in the schools. Of course, I want the best for all children, including my own. But I don't see any harm in just seeing what numbers may look like to benefit those who are struggling in this town. I think we can look at those numbers and see what they, how they can be shifted. And if we have to go back to a higher number, then we have to go back to a higher number. But I think it's unfair to our taxpayers to not look at opportunity for a decrease if it's possible.
Just for information, that is that's a reduction of $99,000, approximately.
So what's the total amount you're taking out? 99?
$99,000 coming out of your current proposed budget, correct?
I may have asked you this before, and I realize it's probably a stupid question, but is there any reason we can't use some of the 189,000 to help reduce the budget?
If
And I
you're,
realize
if you're
it has-
asking me directly, I can't.
I mean, I
can't do
realize
nothing
it
with it.
can't be recurring costs, but like to buy whatever those brass instruments were.
Well, the issue is it's been stated, if we have one student that comes in that needs outplacement with transportation, and that's the amount of money it would take. I think we need to have that available.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if you're looking at, you need an extra $5,000 or something, or 10,000, then that would be an option, but we can't just use $100,000 of that.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to ask our superintendent for a reduction to 3.0, which is an additional reduction of, or it's a reduction of the proposed budget by $99,000? Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? That motion fails.
I'd like to make a motion, but I would like someone to help me with the math.
All right, I got the math.
Yeah, I can help with math, but also we're focused on the operating budget. If we're looking for savings, can we discuss the capital budget right now, or do we have to stay focused on operating?
You got a motion?
I would like to motion to direct Jeff to get to a place, whatever the percentage is, which is like roughly like 55K in savings compared to where we are right now. I don't know what that percentage is. So that's what I'm trying to get to, is roughly that number.
Roughly.
55K less than less than the 3.92% that we've already been at. So if someone can help me figure out whatever that math is, that would be super helpful. Sorry, I don't know how you're calculating those, so.
What's going to be
I'm gonna-
1% was, it's going to be 0.5%.
3.43.
Get out of that
Yeah,
piece of
it's
it.
a 0.5%.
3.43.
3.43. That is my motion, 3.43%.
I'll second it. Do we have a motion to reduce the budget? I'm sorry, to get to a percentage of a 3.43 increase, which is it's an increase of 354,136, or a reduction of $54,714. Any discussion?
I think everybody said everything they have to say. We're just like looking for the magic number now.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor by Kristen for a 3.43% increase, which is a reduction of $54,714 from the current proposed budget. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed.
Sorry, I was.
I'm for, sorry.
Okay.
Let's try that.
Yes.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. And all those opposed. Again, that motion fails.
We're tied again. I did raise my hand.
This is why you have an odd number on a board.
Yep.
We could recruit Mrs. Holt for the night.
Jen, can I interrupt? Can we just go over those one more time?
That last one,
I was wondering how you're keeping up.
the motion was a reduction to 3.43% for an overall increase to the budget, or a reduction to the current proposed budget of $54,714.
For, I guess there's nothing to discuss right now. There's no motion.
There's no
on the floor,
motion
so
on
I
the
have
floor.
nothing to discuss. I'll just see her
Can I
pass
say
it.
yes?
Huh?
Oh,
I was gonna
Yes
clarify where
was
it's on the-
Kirby, Kristen, myself, and
John was in favor.
John.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so
Hypothetically, say we agreed on 3.2 or 3.4 or whatever we decided on. Our next meeting, could we then again come down to another number?
Yes.
Yeah, but the
Like, this
issue at the
isn't
next
end all,
meeting
be
is,
all
it's
for
not the
this.
end all be all, but we do have a timeline that we have to adopt the budget.
Yeah.
So that timeline would require that our next meeting, we're in a position to adopt that budget. I'm sorry, we have a budget workshop for, but that's after the public hearing.
So would it be reasonable to maybe go with, and this is just my opinion, something like a 3.4 or 3.3, whatever number we want to get to, and then review that and then have the same discussion again and perhaps then motion to make that
Yes,
lower again?
yes. We would have to ask our superintendent to bring his,
I don't want to
Computer.
torture you, though.
For the record, who voted
Paying for.
for the last one? Who voted for it?
Kirby, Kristen, myself, and John.
If it's useful, then I will just share that I went back to the contingencies list that Jeff put together. And the legal fees and emergency repairs, legal fees had 20K in contingency that he said we could consider cutting, and the emergency repairs had 32. So when I got to 55, it was a combination of those two numbers and like a little bit extra just to make it a nice round number because I'm prepared. Just for context in terms of where I was coming from with those, what I would expect, given what Jeff has said are available contingencies, those were kind of the cuts that I would expect to happen, which would address Tim's question earlier regarding the emergency budget and the coverage that we get from the DRIP grant. And then negotiations committee, let's be real helpful if we can with whatever we have to do to try to keep our legal fees down, which I know we can't do, but we can find ways to cover those out of the non-lapsing if people get real rowdy in negotiations. But I believe you can keep it down. Anyway, that's where my 55K recommendation was coming from, if helpful for moving the conversation along for tonight.
I was also looking at that same list when I was half missing the vote, and then also thinking that,
That's why we weren't paying attention.
yeah, exactly. And so that's where kind of going to the spirit that we were talking about of trusting our superintendent, empowering. There were some notes. I was trying to do the math between I was seeing 52 and putting the two items that Jeff had mentioned together, and you had 55 and was trying to add them up. And so same there, I felt that we were still in the spirit of this budget, which again, coming in, honest, thank you, your word, practical, and just trying to be direct, not play games, just get down to it. And so I thought removing this 52, knowing that we had some, we had the contingency here, we had non-lapsing. If we need to do an emergency repair, we had non-lapsing. Like that 52 felt like something that we could cut out to get closer. Also, that buys us some more time to see how the regional budget's coming in, to look at the holistic picture a bit better. So that's where I was in favor of still supporting superintendent, but this 52, 55 cut.
The one thing I'll say on that is we can't make any
Agreed.
decisions
Agreed.
based
No,
on what
That's-
Regional
that's-
7.
Jeff
agreed.
is-
It's just a number. It's a number. That was
Yep.
my thinking about the numbers.
So I'm going to, again, we should have motions on the floor to do this. I'm going to make one more motion. I'm going to say, based on what I'm hearing, I'll make a motion to ask Jeff to come back with a budget increase of 3.5%, which would be a reduction of $47,500 from the proposed budget we have in front of us. I'm going to say 7,500 of that has already been accounted for within the reductions that we have today. So we're looking for him to get $40,000 from his proposal on whether it comes from legal fees, emergency repairs, special ed, transportation, or anywhere else within the budget. Right? Because I think there's some other things that can be looked at. We have an estimate in there for ECS. Is that as best we're going to get? Do we do some more research on that? Is there other locations, office supplies, and things like that that could be taken out? If you take some nickels out of the many line items we have, I think that we can come up with $40,000 additional.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second at 3.5%, which is a reduction of 47.5 from the current proposed budget. Motion by Tim, second by Frank. Is there any discussion?
I'll just say that I think 2.9 or 3% would be wonderful if we got there, but just looking at the numbers, I just don't see where it would come from, in my personal opinion. So to get to the, 100,000 plus. So I think that getting to this number is a little more reasonable, gives a little bit of leeway for everybody. And then that number can also be questioned again, though. So I just think that it's something to consider.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of a 3.5%? All those opposed? That motion passes. Did you get everybody on that? Okay. Capital. I will start with a motion on capital. And my motion is in the, you have your capital. I will motion that we remove the 20,700 for the classroom refresh for classrooms 25, 26, and 29 from the capital. Replace that with, I'm sorry, just remove that from there and use our non-lapsing account to fund the repairs at $20,700. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
And the reason, again, I'll give my reason for the motion. Thank you, Kirby. And the reason for my motion is that we do have 3 classrooms that are across the hall here. If we use our non-lapsing for an emergency repair, a one-time repair, we can get that out to bid now and be prepared for the point we hit summer to be able to get the work done over the summer. This budget doesn't go into effect until July,
July 1.
right? So as of July 1, the money doesn't exist to be able to work on those classrooms. So if we use our non-lapsing now to be able to get those classrooms ready, we have classrooms ready. And Jeff and I spoke about what he had. He listed here flooring, painting, windows, and blinds. Those are going to be a necessity regardless. We don't have money in here for technology. We don't have money in here for any specialty equipment based on where the task force study goes and we determine what we can use with those rooms.
If we do that, we should make sure tell the Board of Finance that we did that.
Absolutely.
In Board of Selectmen.
Yes, we report to the Board of Finance with any money that we use out of the non-lapsing as our, just as a transparent, just for transparency.
Can I ask for a piece of flexibility in that motion? If there were additional maintenance funds left over instead of non-lapsing, could that be something that the board would consider? I don't know where I don't have the end of year projections, but I don't want to be limited if there's additional funds that we could use.
You're saying
I
if
don't
this
wanna-
money is not enough?
No, I'm saying if by end of year, we didn't expend all of the maintenance line for one of the buildings, I'd rather use that than the non-lapsing. If I have flexibility is my request, but that's completely up to you. You don't have to amend your motion. You guys do what you want. I didn't want to be pigeonholed if I didn't have to be. Because the motion then carries and then I have to execute the way that the motion is worded. But if that's the board's will, I will do it. I was just asking for flexibility. If so, if not, I've said my piece.
Help me understand. I guess I'm not fully understanding because when you say pigeonhole, what would the motion as stated? How would that pigeonhole it? Just so I understand.
Because then if it goes as stated, then out of the 189, I would have to use 20,700 out of that 189.
Yeah.
The pigeonhole means I have to do it through that fund line, through that line only, versus if there are funds left over in Antolini's maintenance, New Hartford's maintenance, or Bakerville maintenance that I could use for this. For example, I don't know what it would be. I'm making things up in my mind just so I'm not
So-
constricted to doing it one way is all I'm asking. But if the board doesn't feel like that's appropriate, then I'm at the will of the board.
So
Always.
the motion is basically take this out of here, and then we, as the board, would motion to approve later on a drawdown from the non-lapsing account once you have the project out to bid in order to pay for the bid, basically?
That's one funding source. I'm looking for flexibility in any
Right.
funding, any source,
Right.
for either through the operating budget or the non-lapsing. If I have that, that would be my
Okay, so
request for amendment. If not, I'm okay with it either way, because then I could get to work on it either way.
Right.
So it's my motion. So I will amend my motion and let me know if this is what you're thinking. So my motion is to remove the $20,700 from the 26-27 capital.
Yes.
So you're going to reduce capital by $20,700. And then in addition, the motion will include that we will use up to $20,000 from non-lapsing, right? up to $20,000 from non-lapsing, in addition to surplus funds from the current maintenance budgets.
I could do it that way. Maybe I'm not communicating
Yeah.
it clearly.
So what I'm saying, you can use the maintenance budgets if they're surplus. Then you can use another $20,000 from here, because I don't know what's it gonna cost you.
I don't either. This is
Right.
my projection as of right now.
Right. So what I'm saying is that we can use, if you have maintenance costs that are left,
Mhm.
you can use those
Great,
because they're surplus.
Yep.
From the 25-26 school year.
perfect.
And then you have up to $20,000 in non-lapsing.
I could do that. As long as I'm not,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely, great.
You're
Great.
sure that you're,
I could, because I could take from either of those lines, then I'm okay to meet the need of this. Because I don't want to be pigeonholed in just the amount, but if it comes to non-lapsing, I have to come back here.
Right.
Right?
If you have to go above $20,000, you've got to come back to the board.
So that's one way of looking at it.
Yep.
The other way is if I get to the end of this year and I don't have the
Like,
this
you have-
operating
you
year.
have like $3,000 left,
Yeah, can
then you
I,
can go, and the bid is like 22,000. You can cover it
That's-
yourself by
by
just
using-
combining the two line
I'd
items.
rather look at this year's operating budget first, if I
Gotcha.
have funds first,
Yep.
then use non-lapsing to augment that. Because
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not at the end of the year yet. I'm not there.
Yep.
so you're sure gonna have funds though? 'Cause
I don't know. That's,
Yeah.
that's why I don't want to be pigeonholed. If the motion goes this way, then
No,
it's
but we
only
can
one way to
come
pay
back
for
at
it.
the end of the year and approve the drawdown. So I guess is the right way to address this, outside of taking this out of here, to direct you to come back with pricing for this before the end of the school year so that we can figure out what needs to be done before the next budget year starts.
This is if I were to execute this within 30 days. That's
Right.
approximately what I got from a couple companies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is the average of all of that.
Yeah.
Depending
Why
on which
can't-
way I go.
Why can't we just make a motion that
We should remove it for sure.
we are removing that line from the capital budget?
Mhm.
That you're going to make those repairs with any monies left over in maintenance and the balance to be paid from the non-lapsing account.
That's it.
Up
I
to,
love it.
up to
So that's-
20,000,
$20,000.
up to 20,700.
No more.
That's my motion.
Up to
27.
20,000.
Yeah, because then I have the
That's my
flexibility to use this year's leftovers of whatever, maybe none, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
But then if I need additional, I could go to non-lapsing
you
because it's
use
already been
the-
approved here,
You'll
up to
use your
20K.
surplus, whatever extra money you have left at the end of this year,
Yes,
in maintenance only, right?
I'm okay with that.
Or whatever extra money you have, you put it toward those rooms. If you need more money, take it from non-lapsing.
You got to think at the end of the year, if we don't use the maintenance and it
Yeah.
just falls out, it's going to go into non-lapsing anyhow.
Either way, that's what I'm saying.
Right, it's going into.
That's why I want to use
I
it
know.
before just putting it to non-lapsing. That's my whole point.
You really should put non-lapsing into a savings account too, but that's another discussion.
So
Can't garner interest.
everybody understand the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Second still valid. I forget who seconded it now.
Kirby.
Kirby. Yes.
I'm voting for it, you vote, yeah.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. And do you have all that? Because Jeff's gonna have to clarify. it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate that flexibility a lot. Thank you.
Can we just leave now?
Oh, everybody else did.
Legislative, ready?
38 minutes.
Legislative,
Go.
legislative advocacy efforts. If you read your letters, you know the areas of focus that I am on with Education Committee, with the governor, with everybody. But to our representatives specifically, I've met with them both. They are great partners and supporters of education. So you'll see in the letters, education cost share, ding, ding, ding. If you would like to write letters as well, Tim and I have already submitted these. I highly encourage all and any PTOs, anybody that wants to get on the train, get on the train. These are the priorities across the state, but obviously these would help us tremendously. If you want more information on these, I could provide at any point in time. Please give me a call or call Sarah, and I'd be more than happy to meet with you. It is extremely important to advocate for the needs of our community. That's what I'll say in a nutshell. Summarize, done. Okay. I need to set some records straight. So number one, regarding my regarding people putting words in my mouth, these are the words that should be in my mouth. Regarding the task force and regarding Mr. Souza's or the superintendent's desires and dreams, I will say this again. It's already in Connecticut Insider, but all options should remain under review. I want what the town of New Hartford wants. I don't have a say in the matter. I want what the town wants. The town says 3 schools, fantastic. The town says 2 schools, fantastic. Whatever the town says is what I want to set the record straight so that no one can mince my words. It's on record. It's on video. Now it's on YouTube. Okay. It's also in the Connecticut Insider. Thank you very much. And then regarding the audit, I've already discussed that completely. The EFS is our auditing mechanism. It is extremely granular. Please, again, look it up, find out what the EFS report is. It is not the town's report. It's not something that we give to boards of education. That is a statewide function for the optimal platform for auditing all boards of education for every expense and everything that was asked and requested. Let's see what else I have here. That's task force related. All right, if you, yeah, he has to take care of something. Regarding Bright Futures Bulletin, if you haven't seen that already, please take a look. It's our quarterly newsletter to the entire district that was sent out earlier in February. So far, we have a total of 193 views. So encourage everybody, if you have not seen it already, it's an awesome update in terms of all the work that our students are doing, our schools, but also Board of Education work as well. So please take a look at that. And lastly, I'll leave everyone with a quote real quick. Look for the good. I know it's challenging sometimes, but look for the good. That concludes my superintendent's report.
Any questions on the superintendent's report? Please, no. Still being recorded. All right, next item on the agenda is the Board of Education Chair's Report. Under item A, general topics. We went through a lot of the things through the budget presentation and question and answer, so I do appreciate everybody hanging in. All right, we went through public comment in detail. Again, I'll say that I did feel that we had to bring that to the community so people understood why we seem so hard when questions are being asked, but there are vehicles to ask us questions. We want questions. We want to answer them. But again, public comment has to be that. It's opinion and feedback. It's not Q&A, right? That's a hearing. Pre-K was good. We went through that in detail, so I'm glad we got that cleared up and discussed. The roof, you know, again, the idea that it was rejected by the state was not the case. And then the final item here is I have just for the board's information, CABE, we received a letter from CABE regarding our liaison and what does a CABE liaison do. So I wanted to share this with the board. They are to receive a brief monthly CABE email newsletter and share key highlights with the board. We keep these updates concise so board reports can be brief, timely, and useful. Bullet 2 is encourage board members to participate in CABE programs, events, and professional learning opportunities and help ensure everyone stays informed about CABE's work. And bullet number 3, serve as a two-way connection by communicating your board's interests, concerns, or insights back to CABE. The work of CABE liaison directly supports CABE's mission to assist local and regional boards of education in providing high-quality public education for all Connecticut children through effective leadership. And this letter was requesting our liaison, which we, or I should say Kirby, so nicely volunteered. So they have, we have communicated Kirby to CABE, and she will start being part of that group and organization. Thank you, Kirby. All right. BOE communications to the community. I don't have any update to that for this meeting. I believe we are communicating through our normal channels with the Friday folder, Jeff's emails, and any other updates that we've been providing. Anything additional to that?
No, just social media. If you're not following us, get on the train because we're pumping out a lot of information there as well regarding everything. And we're very proud of that. So, and a special thanks to Mrs. Sarah Vogel sitting in our audience. Still with us.
Still with us. All right, and that concludes the budget, or the Board of Education Chair's report. Are there any questions on that before we move on?
Just one.
Yes.
As far as communication, has anybody, I think we asked this before, has anybody reached out to Mrs. DeSantis to try and get news to those people that are not on computers, that don't do QR codes, that don't do Facebook?
Yes. Sarah's already posted flyers in the elevator and communicated over to Mrs. DeSantis as well. So
Has she, do you know if she has sent out anything to her
I don't know that part of it, but
Mailing list?
we could follow that up. But anybody that's visiting, we've got flyers in the elevators. It's awesome.
Because,
See, you caught that? All right, good.
because I
Yep.
mean, I do know some old people that when you mention computers to them, you hear, I'm not on a computer, I don't know how to even turn it on, so. And you want them all included in this utilization task force.
Okay. So next item on the agenda is F, routine business, approval of the minutes from our February 3rd, 2026 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kristen, second by Penny. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the expenditure report. Can I get a motion to approve the expenditure report?
I make a motion.
Motion by
Second.
Kirby. Can I get a second? Second by Tim. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Sorry, just wanted to make a quick note. If you look on page 5, I'd like to just give a quick comment. Page 5, bottom of the page, under tuition, you'll notice a deficit of $55,246.30. Want to make you aware that we are awaiting, as we do every single year, the excess cost grant to come from the state of Connecticut. So if you're alarmed by, whoa, why are we so over on that line? We're just waiting for the grant. Okay? Thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. Okay, under new business tonight, we have Connecticut State Department of Education Operational Memorandum Number 03-26, requirements for submitting the Healthy Food Certification Statement for school year 26-27. So this is something we do each year, and there are 2 motions that we need to put forth today, and I will read these motions for the record, and I'll give these to you so you don't have to write these down. So again, this is a required vote for participation in healthy food options of healthy food certification. Pursuant to CGS Section 10-215F, the New Hartford Board of Education certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organizations and groups.
That was the motion?
That was my motion, yes. Can
Okay.
I get a second? That's only one of 2. So is there any discussion? Is there any discussion on that motion? So you have a motion by the chairman. We've got a second by Frank. Really, all that means is that we are going to comply with the state.
Great.
Right, for nutritional needs of our students. Right? Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. So vote number 2, this is required vote for food exemptions for BOEs voting yes to the healthy food option of healthy food certification. The motion and BOE approved meeting minutes must reflect a yes or no vote to allow food exemptions. So our minutes will have to be part of this. So I motion that the New Hartford Board of Education will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards, provided that the following conditions are met. Number 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. And number 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And number 3, the food items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event, in quotes, is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day, in quotes, is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of this official school day. Location, in quotes, means where the event is being held and must be the same place as the food sales. Can I get a second? Motion by Chairman, second by Frank. Are there any discussions? I'm going to summarize that. It just means that
Does that
we,
have anything to do with the father-daughter dancing with the Raymond Farm, where they might serve food?
it's after hours.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're, yes.
Yep, it's not within the school day. And it's not at a location.
It's got to be at the same location.
Right.
Okay.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
They're just waiting like this.
Yes, they are. Okay, that concludes our new business. I would like a motion, unless there's a reason not to table the second reads of the 5 policies listed.
I'll second that.
I have to get a motion to table.
I make a motion that we table the second reads of the,
All right, we have a motion to table by
Got
Penny.
that?
There's no reason we need to take these is there, tonight.
You could approve them in one fell swoop, or you could table them. That's totally up to you guys.
Doing one fell swoop. I like that.
Wait, are we doing the
Okay.
fell
Oh,
swoop?
yeah.
I like that.
Oh, yeah, we can do fell swoop.
If
Does anybody
nobody
have
has any
anything to
comment or any
discuss?
questions, yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, and get it off.
Great.
So that it's not on next time's agenda.
Right. Withdraw your motion, Penny.
I'm sorry, what?
Withdraw your motion
Why am I withdrawing it?
because you're going to do a new motion to
Okay, I
approve
withdraw
all of
that
them.
motion.
So we have a motion by Penny to approve
All,
policy 3320, policy 4152.6 and 4252.6, policy 6171, policy 9132, and policy 9230. These are all second reads of policies we reviewed last meeting. They're in your packet for review again. So we have a motion by Penny. Can we get a second to approve all those policies? We got a second by Frank. Any discussion on those policies? Seeing none, all those in favor to approve the policies listed? That is unanimous. Next item on the agenda is public comment.
he went home.
Hi, Sarah.
Sarah, would you like to address the board tonight at 10:10? All right, we have no public comment tonight.
A motion to adjourn at.
No, we have.
Wait, I
item
have some
J.
business.
We have item J reports. We
I
have
have business.
2 reports that are needed.
I am so
A
sorry.
is School Facility Utilization Task Force update.
All right, I'm going to read out some stuff. We have some action we need to take tonight, so bear with me here. So the second meeting was held last Thursday, February 19th. Major topics of conversation included formalizing some procedural documentation regarding the way the task force was going to operate and preliminary discussion of the facilities review conducted by SPA, as well as the tours the task members made of the schools themselves. There were a couple dozen community members who were there, and some of them were online. I'm really excited about all the engagement with the task force and hope to see more people coming. Definitely learned some lessons about how to conduct meetings in public, and it will continue to be a work in progress. Then with that said, there were 2 action items that were requested of me at the task force that I needed to bring back to the Board of Ed. So I want to talk about those right now. One was questions regarding the release of the maps of the schools. So during the task force meeting, we walked through a little bit of the maps of the schools. People were asking if we could post the maps online. I said I would bring that back to the Board of Education for a decision because there are security concerns from our perspective regarding posting the maps online. What I would like to propose as a compromise for transparency requested by the public for the task force, but to help us with the line for security is that we create a log of the rooms in each of the buildings with the rough square footage, the way the building is being used right now, whether it's a classroom, whether it's something else. So we don't release the maps, but we have a log so people can answer the questions that they want to have here. So that is the motion that I would like to make, that we we create a log of each room in the building with the square footage and the purpose of the room, that will be used in replacement of releasing the maps for the purposes of moving the task force discussions forward. Can I get a
Second.
second on my
I'll second it
motion?
So you can discuss it, but what do you mean a log?
So like, basically, like, I would expect like a sheet, like an Excel spreadsheet that says in Bakerville, there are 30 rooms. That number is not accurate if anybody's about to call me,
Whatever.
but like each room, it's like, this room is 850 square feet. It is used as the classroom. This room is 200 square feet. It is used as a storage facility. So that,
But you're
again,
not telling them exactly where the rooms are.
but we're not telling them exactly where their rooms are. So basically, if you're thinking about your map, how each of them has like a room number and like and it's color coded
Right.
and there's a square footage, I just want all of that in a sheet so that
Well-
people can see, but they don't see the map.
But where they can go to the town and they can get the maps.
But
can't
we are
they?
not providing that, and I don't know that all the maps are on there, and I do think
No.
that we should look into whether or not the maps are actually updated or available, whatever that is. But in terms of what we're trying to accomplish from a security perspective, I feel like that is a good compromise between allowing people to understand what's going on in the buildings without releasing the maps and like us publicizing them.
I don't know, I mean, just to give them a list of all these rooms, and this is how much square footage is in each of them, they're not gonna be very happy. But then again, I understand your point about not
Who's
giving
who's
out
they?
the general public, like the one that we had tonight.
I think it helps them answer the questions that they're trying to get to
Okay.
in terms of,
All right,
I think you're gonna have,
Right.
each building has a gross square footage. You're gonna list that gross square footage, and you're gonna list what the instructional spaces are within that gross square, whether they're instructional, whether it's a gymnasium or a multipurpose room or a media center like we're in.
Yep.
You can provide that information.
Well,
There's gonna
itemize-
be spaces that aren't
room-
included, like hallways. You're not gonna have square
Right.
footage of a hallway or a custodial closet.
Right.
Right, but you could provide that information. As I look at it, to provide a map, right, when we're thinking about security to anybody and posting it online is not the right thing to do. Anybody can FOI it, right? I don't know how far that goes. We have questions out there to find out what that means, right? Can somebody FOI a map of
I
our
don't
building?
know.
I don't know, right? But we'll ask.
we're asking.
That
But could you
question.
say like there's,
But even if you did, at least you know who
Right.
asked the question and you have a purpose for them requesting that information.
but could you say in the law, there's, like you said, 20 rooms in Bakerville, 10 of them are classrooms, and they're approximately 800 square feet.
Yeah, that's the intention,
Okay.
is basically to
Then I
provide a
guess I
list of the
understand now.
rooms.
And then for the task force themselves, because Michelle brought it up, is that at some point she's going to need to, she wants to go through that.
Right.
That'll have to happen in executive session.
Right.
Right, so it's the task force and not the public getting the map or sitting at home and screenshotting what's on the screen.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing, you put a map of the schools out there, somebody's gonna throw that online. It's not just gonna be New Hartford that's
Yeah.
seeing, it, it's
Right.
gonna be other towns, so we don't want that out there.
So that's my motion.
Seconded by
Roughly.
Penny.
Do you want to do the voting for that? Because it's not really.
Is there any
mentioned.
additional discussion? Anybody have any additional thoughts on that?
I'll go down tomorrow or maybe the next day and look at the building department and see if they do have those maps and what they
And can you
are.
ask them if they do to take them out or like try to,
No, I'll just go down and I don't think they'll take them out.
that sounds great. But in the meantime, can we do this?
I'll go down. Look.
All right, all those in favor of Chris's motion? That is unanimous.
I have one more one more request from the task force, which is basically, we are trying to, the request is to, if the Board of Ed could provide a resource to help with the AV audio recording, live streaming of the task force so that we're not hunched around an owl trying to pop people in and out. Maybe spend that money. I
I
can
mean, John-
make that a little bit more.
John did it the last time.
What?
John did it the last time.
Penny, you asked me to ask the board for money for
know.
this. So I'm happy to, I'm just bringing the business back to the board. If we don't feel, we can absolutely vote it down, but the request was out there and I'm just doing my due diligence to come back to the board and say it was a little bit problematic. People were unhappy with the way that they could see things online and have asked why the equipment that is used for the Board of Ed cannot be used for these task force meetings. There is a cost associated with that in terms of having poor Paul back there setting all of that stuff up. And so there needs to be funding approved for us to be able to move forward with that. So the request is, does the board want to take action on that item, on that request from the task force?
So someone has to make a motion and has to get a second on the floor for discussion.
She just made the motion.
I'll second for discussion.
Any discussion?
Do we know what a potential cost per meeting would be?
I don't have the per meeting, but I could tell you, because the meetings that are currently scheduled, we're looking at a cost anywhere between $1,500 to $2,000. Setup, breakdown, edit, post, review, all of that. It's a lot. And then traveling from building to building to building with equipment, because not every building has this setup, obviously for efficiency purposes. So that's a
the total
ballpark.
cost for all the meetings we have scheduled so far.
Mhm. And then if you ask, where am I getting that from our current budget? I don't have that. That's part two. That's important to understand. Nowhere did we budget for this.
That's something that I would be willing to use the non-lapsing money
Just gonna
for.
say that.
Seems reasonable.
I was gonna say that. And also, when I watched the task force meetings from home, and I'll tell you, if anybody else watched it from home, all I heard was side conversations that had nothing to do with the actual conversation that you were supposed to be listening to. And it was very confusing. And also there were conversations that were just not for public, that I was just like people that I knew in the audience that were just talking to their spouses. And it was just very,
Oh, the owl picks all that up?
yeah,
Yeah, it
it's a
was right
lot of
next to
background
everybody.
noise. And I was watching it from home like, oh man. So I think that $1,500 or $2,000, I think it's reasonable to have the audio that people need to hear.
Do we know if Paul is available for this?
I will beg and plead, but I can't guarantee that because that's a huge ask. He's my only resource right now. So I'm using, yeah, after tonight, he's probably not available. He's going to call me tomorrow and say, I'm not, yeah. So he's my current resource. I'm using his per diem breakdown, setup, all of that. But if he's not available, he's not available. Then I got to solicit somebody else with the knowledge to do all that. So the other thing I would add to it is if the task force will change the methodology of the public comment, that probably will eliminate a lot of that extra noise that's going on. I can't guarantee that, but if it's not public hearing versus public comment, it might change that. So that's just my other 2 cents.
I think the crosstalk was just people talking while we were talking, not just the public comment.
Yeah,
But-
sorry. I heard, the questions from people that were going up and asking questions, but then the owl would adjust to other members of the audience
when they were
where it
fighting
was
with
starting
each
to pick
other?
them up. And I was like listening to people talking about like dinner or whatever their other conversations were. So it was just very distracting and mildly entertaining.
It's well worth the money.
I think there's a part of the community we have to think about too, who already know that we spent over $47,000 to have the study done. The Board of Ed is already paying our minute taker. And now we're asking to have Paul and all the equipment moved around. All right, there's things we have to consider when we make the decision. So we're going to spend more money, right, to be able to, is it to increase the level of audio and video? Is it to, because when I was at the task force meeting, it was all about inviting everybody at home to have the opportunity to be involved in public comment. So in one way, I heard that task force say that we want everybody to have the ability to have public comment. We aren't going to limit the amount of minutes, and we're not going to limit the amount of time that they're there for public comment. The task force is there to do a job, right? You have tasks to be done within that meeting. We're going to spend a lot of time in public comment, in my opinion, if that's the case, if we're going to open it up with people at home. And more so than that, not only that we're going to pay for it, the other thing that I think about as well that we have to consider is there's also people out in the community that asked for the meeting time to be changed. And we've said no, right? The task force said, no, we're not changing the time. So we have a contingent that wants it at 7. We have a contingent that wants it at 5. We have others that want it at 6. We're saying, no, we're going to keep it at 7. So we're not going to bend to help that group who wants it at other times. But yet those who have the ability through public comment in vehicles to ask their questions and not be a public hearing, right? And that was a lot of the conversation at the last task force meeting was we need to allow people to ask questions. Task force meetings aren't the place to be doing that. at least in my opinion, and again, as a Board of Ed task force, we should be following the Board of Ed bylaws. So I look at it and say, what are we inviting here? Are we having these task force meetings to get the work done? Do we have the means for people to ask all the questions they want, which is through email? There's a task force email, there's Board of Ed email, there's different avenues. And that's kind of where I'm challenged. And now we're going to add additional cost onto that we don't have in our budget. And we're going to use our contingencies that we, again, just said we may need for a student who may come into the district, or emergency repairs that we might need. You know, we're going to go and use that funds. And again, I guess my question is, what is the end goal here? Are we trying to enhance the audio and visual quality of these meetings? Because I think the OWL or another way we could do that. Just some of my thoughts for consideration.
I just want to clarify that my understanding was just not for public comment, just for viewing purposes. I think the public comment was a little chaotic, but I'm just saying to be able to view at home and not have any input, I just think that quality could be improved. I think it's just very distracting.
I agree about the clarity of communication aspect of having a proper equipment with a visual that does not move around and try to pick up everything that's around it. The microphones are very helpful for all of that stuff. I understand your point about the public comment. There was I will likely raise the parameters that we set around public comment back up at the next task force meeting, because there was a misunderstanding between myself and another member of the task force regarding some of the parameters we had set up, specifically around the time limit for meetings. I want to make sure that the task force is aligned on what that should look like. So we did leave room when we were discussing all of the procedures for the task force for revisiting the way we were handling all of that. I think people really wanted to have an open discussion and be very open to the community, which I understand. I also don't think that there is a single member of that task force who wants to sit through that much public comment for the next 10 to 12 meetings that we have. And so I think people will be amenable to making adjustments as we go to try to focus the conversation a little bit better. It is a challenge, and it is a challenge to run these meetings, and it is there are no analogous meetings that happen at the town where so many people show up and are so fired up about it. And we also did not have any kind of charter in place before we started those meetings to actually run these meetings. Doing that on the fly, and was told I could not do that before the meetings. All of that work needed to be done in the meetings because of the FOIA restriction. So tried to get consensus on that before the meeting, was unable to, needed to spend time in the meeting on that, and it was not great. I hear what you were saying. I think for my goal for the task force of making sure that people hear what we are saying clearly, they can understand the points that we are trying to make, that having an upgraded AV system that is consistent with what we have been using with the Board of Ed would be of value to the entire town. I will do a better job of trying to wrangle the meetings, but in the meantime, I'm asking for this support so that we can move forward and not get distracted with the work that we actually need to do there. It was not super fun for me to have to walk over to the OWL and sit down on the floor next to the OWL so I could hear what someone was saying there. It was embarrassing to me. It is embarrassing to me to have audience members stand up in the crowd, and when I ask them to move forward so I can hear them, it is embarrassing for me to get yelled at for that because I cannot hear them because they are speaking and they don't have a microphone to speak into. I do not want to be distracted by that. We have work to do. So this is the ask that I'm making.
John is on virtually, and he wanted to mention a couple of things. He said we can change the camera and make it not move. He said it can also attach a microphone so the sound is closer to the speakers. He did say that the room is bad for acoustics. Are you at the New Hartford Elementary Gym?
We were in the next meeting of in Bakerville, and then the rest of the meetings will be in Hampton, but they'll likely be in the multi-purpose room for capacity reasons. John didn't mention this, but I'm asking, is there a way to change all of the locations to here so we don't have to move all of the equipment around? There's only one more meeting right now that is scheduled for There's only one more meeting right now that is scheduled for Bakerville, and then the rest will be here at Antolini, so the equipment does not need to be moved for more than one more meeting.
Is there a reason why we chose New Hartford and Bakerville for
The
each?
reason that we are having meetings in all of the schools is so that people can be
Can
in the
see them.
facilities
Okay.
for themselves if they want to while they're doing that. And then again, we're going to focus the meetings here because it has the best space for it.
Can we try, the owl's only used once, right? For the,
Mm-hmm.
can we try it one more time with John's suggestions and maybe see how it goes after
If
that?
that is the will of the board, then that's fine. We just need to make a motion and vote.
I think if we have the owl, which does work because they use it for Board of Finance meetings, and they're going to use it at the budget meeting on March the 14th, and we have these microphones. And we're
need to be moved.
moved where?
The microphones are all set up through all of this equipment and needs to be moved.
So if he just takes that,
But
forget,
that's the cost that we're talking about.
all right, but forget Bakerville. As long as we're going to be here for all the rest of the meetings, if Paul can take it down to the multi-purpose room,
We're still need to pay for.
right, I
Which is-
realize that. But I think, I understand your point, and I'm sure it was very embarrassing to go down and have to sit on the floor next to John with the computer and the owl to hear who was talking on the phone. I don't feel that we should restrict those people that are home that don't come to our meetings for whatever reason. I think it would be nice to have the microphones so that when you speak, people will hear you and you're not having to shout.
He did say you can attach a microphone so that the sound is closer to the speakers.
And when people get up to speak, they'll have to come up to the front like they do in the multi-purpose room. When we used to have Board of Ed meetings, we have that microphone there that is on a stand and people would have to talk into it.
Right, but then again, I guess you don't want to restrict people at home from being able to provide public comment. But you want to restrict people who can't be at a meeting at 7:00. That's where I'm kind of,
Yeah, I know.
I'm stuck here, is that we're catering to who? Right? Because there are vehicles in many different ways that people can provide public comment if they can't be at the meeting. So if we're looking to enhance the clarity of the meeting visually and acoustically, 100% makes sense, right? I've never listened to a meeting from home. So if you're saying the owl is that bad, I get that. But if we're doing it to promote public comment, I have a hard time, as much as I want, and I definitely want people to communicate. There's vehicles to do that. In the meeting, and those 9 people that are there to do a job. And if you open it up, when things start getting busier and busier and more opinions happen, those meetings are going to get overwhelmed with public comment.
I agree with Tim, but during the meeting, can we connect just a wireless microphone to the owl or no? Is that possible?
I mean, I guess John is saying that that's possible.
So if we could have 2 wireless microphones, one that you have for the board and then one that the public can use, might be something that'll work.
Yeah, I'll wait for his response on that.
And then I would add to that, and again, I'm not on the task force. So if the task force decides that they're going to go down the road of having public comment virtually, we also have to keep in mind that we have a paid professional that we didn't hire to be at meetings for 4 hours each time a meeting happens, if public comment continues to go. So we have to keep that in mind.
Are people commenting from their phones?
No. The owl was set up on a Google Meet,
Okay.
and that was the link that was set out, and then we were trying to unmute people from there one at a time to let them talk.
When you have people participating in a Google Meet and it's open to the entire public, you're inviting some,
Oh, and they had to promote. right?
Crazy
So
people.
when they did public comment.
I've
they
heard
had-
racist people at like congressional, when Congress tried that, they bring in all kinds of, it's the potential is dangerous if it's open to everybody.
He says the virtual public comment is biggest concern for managing. He said it's hard and risky. Is that something that we have to continue to do?
At the last task force meeting, the task force voted in favor of allowing public comment to happen over the over the virtual link.
Okay.
That was something that we voted specifically on, and that is the will of the task force.
Okay.
Can they do it just in text?
I don't know enough about the mechanics of this, so I'm just, if
I do a
what I'm
meeting-
hearing is no, that we can't have the equipment and we can't have the funding for it. So I'm happy to take that back to the task force if that is the way that people want to vote.
I do a monthly meeting where we can only communicate through text.
I just want to add to that. I think that having just as a thought would be having people be able to submit their questions or comments through a text, like you said, and then have one person that be an agenda item where public, part of the public comment is someone reading those items or, I don't know, tabling them for the next time and then addressing those questions at the next, at the beginning of the task force meeting, like we address public comment here.
I can certainly bring that back to the task force, but I'm at the mercy of the will of the task force for that. So again, I just need an answer tonight on the equipment. It sounds like a no for right now.
I'm not necessarily a no. I would just think we should table it to see if the other options work.
Jeff, is this something we could ask the Board of Finance for money for?
Sure. Could ask Board of Finance, Board of Select, we could ask anybody.
It doesn't just have to be on us. There's two other groups we could ask to split the cost. I'm sorry.
When's the next task force meeting?
March 11th.
And our next meeting is March 3rd, is it?
Oh,
So we can,
field test it,
yeah.
practice.
Would it be too late to make a decision then or no?
Let me ask you this. When you're watching the Board of Finance meeting with the owl, do you hear all the other noise in the background?
If there's noise, there's no one there.
It pans around to people at the
There's
table.
no one at those meetings. At our task force, we got people there. Board of Finance, no. And Board of Selectmen, no.
8 people sitting around and it's very quiet.
Yeah.
You're not hearing.
No, but sometimes they talk to each other.
I know everybody wants to get out of here, but when I think about how important this meeting is, and you see the audience, even at the beginning of this meeting, you saw the audience. You see the audience at the task force meeting is massive. It's going to grow. I personally think if this is so important that we do this for the Board of Ed meetings, and the task force is such a priority for this, for years, this has been something that's in the making and it's happening now. Why are we treating it any differently than we treat these meetings? I really do think if this is something that's important to Kristen, then I don't think that $1,500 should hold us back from assisting her in this, especially if it's personally affecting her. I don't think that's fair.
I would suggest that we go to the other two boards and ask them if they'll split the cost with us. If not, another option is to go to the Board of Finance and say, would like to have this money. Would you please give it to us? And if worse comes to worse, we'll take it out of non-lapsing.
Just keep in mind, if Paul can't do it, we have to hire out and it's going to be a lot more expensive.
Maybe Paul has a good friend that could help us for the same price.
Okay.
Maybe you could train somebody.
Jeff, can you please help me quantify the cost?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And
And if
again,
you're
with-
bringing me the cost this week, then I will take it to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance and ask them to split it 3 ways. And hopefully we'll get some resolution on that before the next task force meeting.
Will do.
I can help you with the other two groups.
Can we do that, and with that next task force meeting coming up so soon, fund the one meeting for audio on March 11th? You understand what I'm saying? And then that buys a little time to see if the other 3 can help. I don't know what it costs to fund it one time.
Just doing this because I'm cold.
We're not going to use the owl when we're here, I'm assuming, right? So we have to fund it anyway. Is that true? Or were we going to use?
No,
owl? We were gonna use the
Paul is
owl?
not contracted right now to come support the meetings. He was not at the first task force meeting. There was no equipment at the task force meeting, the first one. We got reamed out for that. John very kindly volunteered to bring his owl, and it was not the best solution, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would definitely be in support of funding that, especially with help from the other.
I make a motion that we fund the March
We have a
11th.
motion.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Oh,
Can we clarify what our motion is?
Did you,
So-
was it your
Get the
motion?
money.
no, it was to fund it, the whole thing.
I believe the amended motion is that we ask the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, you direct me to ask the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen to split the cost of having this support 3 ways for the rest of the task force meetings. That's the right motion. Is
Of
that
the
correct?
AED equipment?
Yes,
Okay, that's your amended motion, but the original motion
We don't
was to
remember
just
what
fund it.
was.
was to have the.
Was for us to just fund it.
Correct, just
Yeah.
the Board of Ed.
And didn't you pull back that motion?
Yes, I just amended it to split the 3
I'll
ways.
second your new motion.
You're the chair. I think you have
Any
to do the
additional
vote.
discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Motion's unanimous.
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All right, is there anything on a
Table at advance.
table at advance? Good with
Table
that?
that advance, we're motioning to adjourn at 10:35.
I'll second that.
Kirby.
Those in favor?
All, yes.
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
All right,
Can you
everybody.
call a late